Hey you guys, hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let me know if when it brought you in and went straight to commercial or if it brought you into my video. Also, if you got the notification or how you came to stumble upon this video. Trying to see if YouTube is doing me the favor, the graciousness of putting notifications out when I go live. So my followers know that I'm actually live because so often it doesn't happen. Okay, so, forgot what I was going to say. Had a busy morning, stayed up way too late, so I am on my first Red Bull, you guys. Should be like my third, honestly, because I've been up since 5:30. But yeah, we're gonna hop into this trial. The trial is like it's been on since like 9:30, right? Like 9:30. However, they have like 45 minutes of sitting around outside the courthouse, and then 45 minutes of looking at the clock. So I wanted to schedule ours a little bit later. That way we don't have to look at the clock. You know what I'm saying? For 45 minutes. I had a meeting this morning at the school that went fine. It was an IEP meeting for my son. That went fine. And I was supposed to take my daughter to work, but I didn't have to take her to work. So we're here. We're going to get started. Hopefully, I was thinking, because I said yesterday, we are going to take a break when they do the lunch break. However, since we're starting later, we may be able to completely skip the lunch break. Like by the time we get to the lunch break, they might be actually back from the lunch break. Maybe. If not, then we might take a short recess because yesterday's live stream was 7 hours long, sitting here for 7 hours. Oh, I mean, I'm eating popcorn. I'm eating this. I'm eating that. I'm drinking this. I'm drinking that because I'm just sitting. You know what I'm saying? So I got my notebook every day at the end of the trial. I am putting up a little recap that I'm putting up as a story on my channel, as well as on my TikTok and on my Facebook. If you don't follow me on my TikTok or my Facebook, go follow me. I have an Instagram as well. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I have all of those. The links are in the description box below. Also, you guys, someone commented on my thing saying, girl, are you okay? You look pale. I'm not pale. It's my lighting. I think I need like the orange lights instead of the blue lights. I have like 2 blue, 2 orange. The orange on the side, the blue right there, so they point directly down on my face. Really, I am not pale. I'm actually orange like Donald Trump. So I don't know why I come off so pale. I swear I'm healthy. I'm okay. I'm not dying. In real life, I'm orange. Not really, but I'm tan. I have a decent color. I'm not. I do look really white. I don't know why. But I've had that question asked me several times, like, girl, you look pale. Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm really not pale. But it is what it is. That's fine. It is the lights. It does make me look really pale. I'm always like, I'll look at myself like this. Like, I can't, why do I look so white? It's the lighting. I need to give me some different lightings. All right, let's get into it, you guys. I haven't even watched anything from today. Get prepared. Don't be eating. You know what I realized yesterday? Yesterday, I was eating spaghetti. And I'm leaning over like this, and I'm eating spaghetti. And they're saying, I hear the word brain matter on the floor. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to be eating right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anything before the jury comes in?
Yes, sir. I believe Mr. Fernandez needs to address one housekeeping matter before we bring the jury.
Morning, Your Honor.
Just per the clerk's request, I'm going to list out a couple, 6 exhibits from yesterday under Captain Chapman's testimony, just clarifying for the record that they were put.
Thank you, Stacy. Or I thought it was saying Stacy became a member, but Stacy, who's my member for 5 months? Yay! Happy 5 months. Hey, girl. Hey.
Into evidence and without objection by the defense. That would be 189, 190, 191, 192. Those are 4 pictures that were put in under testimony, and then 187 and 188. Those were the 2 drone videos.
And what do you want to do?
Clerk needed clarification on those numbers because it was unclear that those numbers were part of the record.
Okay.
Before the jury comes in, you bring the jury.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. You look lovely, too. Not that I can see you, but I know you do. Every Laura that I know is cute. See, yeah, every Laura I know is cute. And I know a few Katies that, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. It was a joke.
Jury is present.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, continuing on, day number 5. State's case, next witness.
May it please the court.
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the state of South Carolina calls Detective Laura Rutland.
If you take a seat in the witness stand, state your name again, spell your last name.
My name is Laura Rutland, Rutland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you nervous?
Yes.
Nobody's watching.
That's hilarious.
You are Laura Rutland.
I am.
Please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury about Laura Rutland, where you're from, where you were born, where you lived, and a little bit of your background leading up to law enforcement, please, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. When I was about 6 months old, my family moved back to England, where we were originally from. Lived there until I was about 3 or 4 years old. Came back to the United States. Grew up in Somerville, South Carolina. Graduated from Somerville High School. After I graduated, I was working as a dog groomer. Met my would-be my husband. We moved to Port Royal, South Carolina. He was in the Marine Corps, stationed at Parris Island at the time. Then we moved to Bluffton. We had decided, I decided to pursue law enforcement. I've always been a true crime nerd, into mysteries and things like that, so I decided to pursue law enforcement. I graduated from
I'm right there with her. Isn't that wild that she's just like a big true crime junkie, and here she is in one of the biggest cases of the world.
the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy in 2010 and was working at the Bluffton Police Department, where I held various roles. Started on patrol, became a detective.
All apologies, legit. I literally just thought, like, Laura, I like you. And he did say, tell me a little bit about yourself. But he didn't mean your whole life story, girl. Like, I was born at 9 months old on December 11th, blah, 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 whatever year, because I can't calculate that. 11:36 a.m. in the morning. I was actually a couple weeks early. My daddy wasn't there. I never met him. But anyways, I was born at this hospital on this day, this time, whatever. At 6 months old, we moved to England. We came back at 2 years. Like, it's like general information. I was born here. I wanted this type of career, went to college here. But I love you, Laura. I love you anyways. She's nervous.
Then I was promoted to supervisor, where I could supervise a patrol shift, and then eventually supervise the detective unit at Bluffton PD. My husband and I decided we wanted a lot of kids. So after I had my third baby, I decided to try my civilian job, get out of law enforcement for a little bit with a better schedule. So I briefly worked on Parris Island as a sexual assault victim advocate for the sexual assault response and prevention program. Realized I missed law enforcement, so I wanted to get back. So especially investigations. I first tried Beaufort Police Department, but it would take several years for them to have an opening in criminal investigations. So then I came to the Colleton County Sheriff's Office where they were seeking experienced detectives. And so I joined Colleton County Sheriff's Office in September 2020. And February 2021, I was transferred to the Criminal Investigation Division, where I currently am now. My main focus is child crimes, which means children of sexual and physical abuse. Those are the cases that I predominantly work, as well as I'm a South Carolina ICAC task force member. And what that means is it's Internet Crimes Against Children, and that's a task force that's partnership with the Attorney General's office. And we basically battle online child predators, child pornography, those types of cases. We do rotate homicides in the detective division.
Look, Alex is genuinely interested in her life story. He's like, he's like, okay, that's pretty impressive. Look at him.
Realized I missed law enforcement, so I wanted to get back. So, especially investigations. I first tried Beaufort Police Department, but it would take several years for them to have an opening in criminal investigations. So then I came to the Colleton County Sheriff's Office where they were seeking experienced detectives. And so I joined Colleton County Sheriff's Office in September 2020. And February 2021, I was transferred to the Criminal Investigation Division, where I currently am now. My main focus is child crimes, which means children of sexual and physical abuse. Those are the cases that I predominantly work, as well as I'm a South Carolina ICAC task force member. And what that means is it's Internet Crimes Against Children, and that's a task force that's partnership with the Attorney General's office. And we basically battle online child predators, child pornography, those types of cases. We do rotate homicides in the detective division, among 9 of us.
At some point, did you work at Paris Island?
I did, yes, sir.
Tell these folks what you did there.
I was a sexual assault victim advocate for civilians on the base.
Hold up, y'all. This man said, tell us what you do for a living. Tell us a little bit about yourself. She has her whole life story, and she said, I decided I wanted to break away from this type of work, and I went to work a civilian job at Paris Island. She said Paris Island. He's walking around. Then he comes, after she gets done, he says, did you ever work at Paris Island? She said that. He says, tell him about that work. She already did.
Base.
And your training in law enforcement has been what, detective?
It's been various things. It's been basic training to advanced training. You name it. I've attended several advanced trainings hosted by other law enforcement agencies, state and federal.
How many children do you have now?
We have 4.
Oh.
And does your husband work?
He does.
Does he work from home?
He does.
What's he do?
You started full-time with Colleton in what year?
2020.
Okay. And what was your role when you first started with Colleton County Sheriff's Office?
I started on patrol to familiarize myself with the county.
And then did you work yourself, or not work out, but you become a detective?
I did, yes.
Okay.
She
When
said
was
that.
February 2021.
She said that.
On June 7th of 2021. Well, let me ask before I get there. Where do you, not to pry, I don't want the world to know, but they're going to, where do you live?
I live in Ridgeland.
Now, on June 7th of 2021 was your roll call.
I was.
Okay. How far is it from Ridgeland to here?
45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic and what part of Colleton County I'm going to.
Did you receive a call to respond to a double homicide?
I did.
And where was that? Where were you supposed to respond? Okay.
Initially to the scene, 4147 Moselle Road, but due to my long commute, it was better that I stopped at the sheriff's office first, and I be the ones that prepare the search warrant for the property.
And who were you coordinating with during that? I mean, who was your boss?
That's Captain Jason Chapman.
And after you'd received the call, did you confer with Captain Chapman?
I did.
And as a result of that, what did you do?
I went to the sheriff's office, prepared the search warrant, was finally able to track down a magistrate. I had to wake him up out of bed to sign the warrant, and I was able to secure a search warrant for the property.
And for 4147 Moselle?
Yes, sir.
What did you do after you got the search warrant?
I notified everybody over the radio that I had the search warrant signed because I wasn't sure if the SLED crime scene unit was waiting on me. And it was still going to take some time to get out there.
She went dancing after she got inside. Ooh, what else did she do?
And then I made my way to 4147 Moselle Road with the warrant.
Had you been out there before to 4147 Moselle?
Never.
When you went out there, did you know what your role was going to be as you were going out there?
I did not.
When you got to the scene, tell us what happened.
So when I pulled up, I noticed there were several SLED agents as well as Colleton County deputies at the scene. I was basically the last one there. And I met with my supervisor, Captain Jason Chapman, and presented them with the search warrant as well as SLED. He asked me if I knew the Murdaugh family, to which I replied I did not. They then asked me if I was familiar with a boat accident that had happened in Beaufort, and my reply was, I've heard of it, but I don't know the details. So with that information, they said, okay, you're going to be assigned as the liaison with the lead SLED agent on the case, who was identified as Senior Special Agent David Owen, and that my task was going to be to assist him with anything he may need that evening at the scene and throughout the investigation.
And I think we've heard prior testimony, but the case was turned over to SLED because of a potential conflict. Is
That's
that
correct. That was one of the things my captain advised me of when I arrived at the search warrant. He advised me that SLED was going to be the lead agency on the case.
And did you know Special Agent David Owens prior to that night?
I did not.
Okay. But did you get to know him and actually get to work with him some?
I did, yes, sir.
And let's start out with that job. When you first got to 4147 and you got your instructions, who were you going to work with, what were your observations? Tell these folks what you saw.
So the first thing as I approached I'm sure you've all heard of the kennels, was the overwhelming smell and a lot of water on the ground by the kennels. And then the first body that I approached was the deceased male. He was laying face down at an angle with his feet inside the plane of the door. There was obvious trauma to the top of his head. He was covered with a sheet, but I could still see the top of his head from underneath the sheet. Obvious trauma. There was brain, blood, hair, skull matter, all within the feed room and the ceiling. There was a deceased female, approximately 30 feet across from where his body was, and she was covered as well. But I had been told that they both had gunshot wounds to their heads. And then from there, we located the 911 caller, Mr. Alex Murdaugh.
Now, did you know, everybody's referring to him as Paul and Maggie, did you know Paul Murdaugh and or Maggie Murdaugh?
I did not.
Had you ever seen them before you saw them laying dead on the ground?
No.
At that point, did you walk any of the rest of the scene?
Not at that point.
Okay. Well, tell the folks what you did do after that.
We located Mr. Murdaugh, Alec, standing at the back of there was his Suburban, and then there was, I believe his brother Randy had arrived at the scene at that point, and they were standing behind Randy's truck, so they couldn't see the scene anymore. So we approached him, and
I think the smell that she smelled was already the smell of like probably decomposition, because this is hours later from my understanding. She's saying she was a 45-minute drive away. So because she was that far away, rather than going to the scene, she went to obtain the search warrant. So that took getting the information, typing it up, and then she had to go wake up a magistrate judge to get him to sign it. So she was here probably 3 or 4 hours after this took place. So by that time, it's probably starting to smell. That's what I would assume.
and asked if he would speak with us. He introduced the man standing next to him as his personal attorney, Danny Henderson, and he agreed to speak with us. By this point, it had started to rain, so we utilized Agent Owen's vehicle to do.
Well, tell the folks.
I'm backing that up because it seems like I think I just heard her say that Alex attorney was already there. So I want to listen to that again.
That's what you did do after that.
We located Mr. Murdaugh, Alec, standing at the back of there was his Suburban, and then there was, I believe his brother Randy had arrived at the scene at that point, and they were standing behind Randy's truck, so they couldn't see the scene anymore. So we approached him and asked if he would speak with us. He introduced the man standing next to him as his personal attorney, Danny Henderson, and he agreed to speak with us. By this point, it had started to rain, so we utilized Agent Owen's vehicle to do the interview.
Now, before we get to that, had you made any other observations about bullet holes or shell casings prior to that?
Yes, there were shell casings in front of Maggie's head area, in front to the left on the ground. In between, there was like a gravel area in between the two buildings.
Had you seen what's been referred to as the feed room? And
Yes.
okay, what did you observe in there, if anything?
Inside the feed room, I did observe body matter that had been on the ceiling, as well as covered in items inside the feed room. There was shotgun wadding on the floor inside the feed room, as well as droplets of blood on the concrete.
Did you see any holes in the window?
Yeah, there was a window to the back of the feed room that had several holes in it.
I want to skip the statement for a second. All right.
Mm-hmm.
After you took the statement, we're going to get into that. Did you go back and look at the scene with either Captain Chapman, and I say the scene, the shelters, the dog kennels? Did you and or Captain Chapman or anybody else have an opportunity to go back and look?
I did.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen, first of all, why you did that and what were your observations, please, ma'am?
Well, it was such a large scene. I decided to canvas the outer part of the scene, and while I was doing that, keep in mind it was late at night, it was dark, so we had flashlights. So while I was doing that, I noted some what appeared to me to be fresh shoe impressions in a sandy part of the shed on the left side of the hangar, what we're describing as the hangar. In between some tractors and the wall of the shed, there was several fresh shoe impressions.
And when you say fresh shoe impression, kind of obvious, but what does that mean?
It means that they have been left fairly recently.
What did they appear to you to be?
They look like a flat sandal, flip-flop type shoe, not particularly large in size, just flat.
Were they one set of footprints or two based on your observation?
It was one set of prints that looked like it went down one direction and possibly came back.
No doubt about that in your mind?
No doubt about that.
So if you watched me there, was it like one set of prints going this way?
Yes.
And then it looked like one set of prints coming back this way?
Yes, because they did overlap each other a little bit.
And and who was with you when you were looking at these?
I was by myself initially, and then I found my supervisor, Captain Chapman, and showed him what I had found.
Where were y'all walking when you were looking at the prints?
We had made the decision at that point, due to the type of incident that it was, and we didn't really know what we had yet, to follow the footprints and see if there was any other additional evidence and find out where that person may have been trying to go. So what we did is we stayed to the left side of the shoe prints, closest to the tractors, and followed the prints down. Noted that they stopped at the end of the building, turned around, and came back.
And I'm going to show you what's entered the States 194. Is that what you're just referring to?
No.
Okay. What does this depict?
That depicts several what appear to be boot prints on as well.
Is this the same path y'all walked?
Yes.
Okay. And let me show you. States 195. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, those are the flat, just the flat ones impressions.
Okay. Promise you I can't do this. Can we start now, Please.
same way. Guy,
Let me
sign
show you
girl.
what's marked states 22. Do you recognize this, and does it relate to your testimony?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, states 22 without objection.
Submitted.
Are we on? Let me go back to what's just been entered as states 22. You said you recognize that. What is that, Detective?
That's in front of the hangar, the building. So Maggie would be to the right, and the shoe impressions I'm referring to would be on the left.
And getting a little closer view on states 194.
Yes, that's the left side of the hangar.
Can you show in this picture the prints you were talking about, the footprints?
Yes.
Can you come down here with the judge's permission?
Yeah.
Sure, please.
Flat ones. Hard to see, there's a big glare.
Okay. Let me put in states 195 too, Detective.
Yeah, these flat impressions, these flat ones. Can you all see?
Were those foot impressions you saw that night? The flat ones?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other foot impressions beside the flat ones that you saw?
No,
Okay. On evening of June 7th, early morning of June 8th of 2021?
that's correct.
You're positive?
Positive.
And again, when you and the captain walked, how far were you from the sandals?
A foot to the left?
Don't take this any bad way. But could some of those other prints be yours or the captain's, or you don't
It's
know?
possible.
Okay. Now you were and I'm going to do this without putting it up. This is one of those pictures that we've uncovered, but I'm going to show you states 7. You're a lady.
Yes, sir.
You know what women's shoes look like?
Yes, sir.
Did you go and look at Maggie's shoes she was wearing?
I did,
Okay. Why'd you do that?
to see if they matched the flat impressions I had seen.
And were they similar to you?
Very similar. Yes.
And states 200. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
And what are those?
Those are the sandals Miss Murdaugh had on.
And did they appear to be similar to the footprints you saw?
Yes, very.
Now, did Mr. Harpootlian or one of the investigators contact you about these footprints?
He did
When was that?
a few weeks ago.
And did they send you a picture of them?
They did.
Okay, was it the pictures we just put up?
It was.
And did you tell them that, well, what did you tell them when they sent you that?
That those were not my impressions.
That those weren't your impressions? The
Correct.
Volunteered to talk to them?
I did.
Sent you a picture of the shoes?
Yep.
You told them those weren't mine?
Correct.
All right, let's get back to, I think you said the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, the defendant had said, introduced you to who before you started the interview?
Danny Henderson said he was his personal attorney.
His personal attorney.
Yes.
Did he want his attorney in the car with you?
He did.
And I believe you said it was raining?
Yes, sir.
So what did y'all do to get out of the elements?
We sat inside Agent Owens with sled inside his vehicle.
And please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury specifically where everybody was sitting.
Agent Owen was in the driver's seat. Alex Murdaugh was in the front passenger seat. I sat directly behind him, and then Mr. Henderson sat to my left.
Please listen to me. Was that the first time you met Alex Murdaugh?
It was.
Did he appear to you to be under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any other intoxicant when you saw him?
He did not.
Did he appear to you to understand your questions and Special Agent David Owens' questions when y'all were talking to him?
He did.
Were his answers to either you or Agent Owens timely?
Yes.
Were they subject matter appropriate?
Yes, they were.
Did you have any trouble understanding the defendant when you were talking to him?
I did not.
Did he appear to have any trouble understanding you and responding to your questions?
He did not. He may have asked twice to repeat a question, but he was understanding what was being discussed.
I'm going to show you what's marked States 153.
No, it's not only men on the jury. It is a mixture of men and women. I actually saw it yesterday. I think it's more women than men. Yeah. Emily Baker made it sound like the jury is mostly women. I do think it's mainly women. I read an article that said how many it was, how many were men, how many were women, how many were white, how many were black. I'll try to find that article and go over it in a little bit.
At my request, did you review this yesterday?
I did.
And does this States 153 accurately reflect the interview you, Agent Owens, had with the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh?
It does.
Your Honor, at this time, 153, I believe without objection. No objection.
It's admitted.
And with His Honor's permission and with the help of someone, we'd ask to respectfully publish.
Okay, so 8 of the 12 jurors are women and 4 are men. The majority of the jurors are white. There are 2 that are black. 6 alternate jurors were also chosen and sworn in. Of the 6, 2 are women and 4 are men. The alternates are evenly split with 3 black and 3 white. It's a combined total of 18 jurors in all that range from the age of 20 to the late 50s. That I didn't notice that he said that. Normally you would say, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I think it takes a while for the sound. It takes a little bit for the sound to come through. It does. While we're waiting for the sound, is that the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
It is.
Is that you back in the back?
That is me.
Who is that?
That is Special Agent Owen.
Who is that?
Danny Henderson.
All right, so
Buster is there. They had the camera on him earlier. He's there.
all right, Mr. Murdaugh, state your full name for me, please. Richard Alexander and give me your last name so we get it ready. Murdaugh. Will you go by Alex? Yes, sir. And date of birth, Mr. Murdaugh? May 27th, 1968. And please phone number for you. 803-942-1227.
And so what was your name?
Yeah.
All right. As I stated, I'm David Owen, and Laura Rutland with Colleton County Ambulance Lead. I hate to have to do this.
I understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So you don't have any problem with it.
So, just start at the top, take your time.
Like when I came back here, I mean, I pulled up and I could see him, and you know, I knew something was bad. I ran out. I knew it was really bad. My boy over there, I could see it was. And I could see his brain almost. And I ran over to Maggie. Actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. You know, I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started to try to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I mean, I could see.
Did you touch Maggie at all?
I did. I touched them both. I tried to I tried to do it as limited as possible, but I tried to take their pulse on both of them. And, you know, I called 911, pretty much right away, and she was very good. I talked to her. I told her I was going to get off the phone to call some family members. I did that.
What family members did you call?
I called my brother Randy, and I called my brother John. And I tried to call a little boy, a real good friend that's right around the corner from here, but I didn't get him.
What all was around Paul when he walked up?
Blood.
Anything else?
I mean, there was some body things, yes, sir.
I mean, like any other evidence? I know you said the phone fell out of the pocket, but did you see anything else that didn't belong or shouldn't belong or that wasn't part of Paul?
No, sir, not the. No, sir.
How about Maggie?
No, sir.
You didn't see anything around them? What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them and Maggie's a dog lover. She fools with the dogs. And I knew she'd gone to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's. Just a little while. Tried to call her when I left. Texted her, no response. When I got back to the house was Obviously, nobody was in there, so I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul's gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds. So I came back up here and drove up and saw and called.
Had Maggie and Paul been arguing over anything?
No.
What was their relationship like?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. How about yours and Maggie's?
Wonderful. I mean, I'm sure we had little things here and there, but we had a wonderful marriage, wonderful relationship.
And yours and Paul's relationship?
As good as it could be.
How old was Paul?
22.
You know his date of birth?
I do. April 11th, 96 is his brother's. April 14th, 99 is Paul's.
What's Maggie's full name?
Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh.
Her date of birth, sir?
September 15th, 1968.
Have y'all been having any problems out here? Trespassers,
None
people
that,
breaking in?
none that I know of. The only thing that what comes to my mind is my son Paul was in a boat wreck a couple of years ago, and there's been he was charged with being arrested for being the driver. There's been a lot of negative publicity about that, and there's been a lot of people online just really vile stuff. But when Paul's out and about, I mean, people routinely, I don't think I know the full story, so I don't think they give it to me, but I mean, he's been punched and hit and just attacked a lot, so, but I mean, nothing like this.
Yeah. Any one person in particular or a group of people
I don't know.
that you could think of?
It's not that I know, no, sir.
Has he, other than being assaulted, has he received any direct threats related to the boat accident?
Oh, yes. All the time.
Recently?
Yes, sir. I mean, he gets them all the time.
Okay.
He gets them all the time.
What kind of,
I'm gonna kick your ass, I've never been privy firsthand,
Is that through social media? Or?
No, ma'am. It's mostly like if he goes out places is what goes out, like somewhere. He's in college, so he goes out, is what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I can find out better details from some of his younger friends on that.
Who's his best friend?
His best friend in Colombia is Will's Chapman, Will Loving, Bobby Boyle. Bobby Boyle, Will Chapman, and Paul were getting ready to move into a house together in Colombia.
You said Will Chapman and Will Loving?
Will's with an S, Chapman, and Will with an L, Loving.
Okay.
Around here, his best friends are clearly Nolan Tootin and Roden Gibson.
Nolan Tootin?
Yes, sir.
And what was the other one, sorry?
Roden Gibson.
Have you talked with any of these guys tonight?
Talked with Nolan, yes, sir.
Is he out here?
Yes, sir. I tried to call Roden. Was one of the people he's the boy that I told you lives around the corner. That's Derek. You know, he's just a good, healthy young man. You mind if I open the door real quick?
Go ahead. Do what you need to do. So is there anybody that you can think of that we need to talk to tonight? Is there a name that comes to mind?
I mean, I can't tell you anybody that I'm overly suspicious of off the top of my head. You know? I mean, this is such a stupid thing. I'm even embarrassed to say it. But it just didn't make any sense. I just hired a guy out here, and he wasn't cutting the mustard, but I hadn't told him this yet. Paul's been working with him a lot. He killed the sunflower seeds in our dove field just recently, which is why Paul was here doing this. He told Paul a story the other day about how when he was in high school, he got in a fight with some black guys. And the FBI undercover team observed him fighting those guys and put him on an undercover team with 3 Navy SEALs. And that their job was to kill radical Black Panthers. And they did that from Myrtle Beach to Savannah. Now, I really don't think this guy, you know, is probably the person, but that's just so freaky.
Yeah, that's kind of a far-fetched story.
It's weird, but he was off today.
Okay.
He took his daddy to the doctor.
What's his name?
C.B. Rudd.
R-O-W-E?
Yeah, and I sent him a message to text me earlier today about the sunflowers, and he called me back when I was on the way to my mom's house.
Did you talk to him at that time?
Briefly, I was on the phone with a lawyer friend of mine named Chris Wilson from Bamberg, so I told him I'd call him back tomorrow, see him in the morning.
When you briefly talked to Mr. Rowe, what was his demeanor or attitude? Or
I mean, it seemed normal. I mean, I asked him about the sunflowers and stuff. You know, I mean, I'm sure he's a little bit.
Where does he live?
I don't exactly know. Somewhere in in Bronson.
Okay. Do you have his phone number?
I do.
You got it with you, Lisa?
I do. You know, but I do think him and Paul got along pretty well. That's just really, really weird. All right. C.B.
Right there. You land.
Yeah, I know. He called me, so I'll do that.
Okay. 843-540-9335. You can do that phone in charge. Is that an iPhone?
Yes, sir.
Watch your life for 60s.
Thank you.
When did you tell that story to Paul?
Sometime last week.
Okay.
Sometime last week. My son Paul actually, I really do not think, in all honesty, that it's him, but I know y'all got to check it out. But Paul is so taken aback by it that he sent, I'll find it, I got it on my phone. He recorded him saying bits and pieces of it.
So, thank you, babe. So we're listening to, this is Alex Murdaugh being questioned by the lady on the stand. She showed up, and because she didn't know who he was, she didn't know anything about his family, she didn't really know about the boating accident, she was assigned to be the liaison to work with SLED, who was taking over the case because too many people in that area knew Mr. Murdaugh, so they couldn't really handle it. They had to hand it off to SLED. So she was assigned to work as the liaison with SLED. So we're listening to audio of her sitting in a vehicle because it was raining at the crime scene that night, early morning hours, where they're questioning him. And that's really weird that he starts talking about this FBI, like this guy that the FBI saw him fight, so they picked him up. He worked with SEALs. That's just sounds crazy.
But for all this weirdness, I mean, I do think they like, I mean, they got along pretty good.
How long have you been working here?
It's about 3 or 4 pay periods, so 8 weeks, a couple months.
Going back to the boat incident, anybody on that boat really have a hard on for Paul that you would think would come after him, or know of any direct threats from people on the boat?
I don't know of any direct threats between any of the people on the boat specifically, but I do think there's been a small amount of yip-yap between a couple of them, but not recently. Most of this was stuff from people that Paul didn't really know. There was some people that he knew distantly, but more times than not, when I learned about it, it was somebody that he didn't know. It's like, for example, he went out in Charleston a couple months ago, came back, he got a black eye. And, he can't defend himself right now because he's charged, so, he would, Paul was a real tough man's man. He would
defend himself, but he hadn't done it.
That's right. But,
how was he handling his
as far as what?
How was he handling it?
I've never been prouder of him than the way he has handled the pressures and the adversity in that situation. I think I've told Danny that before. I mean, Paul is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kid. He can do almost anything. He gets along with almost anybody.
Do y'all store any weapons out here?
We don't store them, but they're frequently out here. I need to find out if there were any out here because I know there was a shotgun. There was a 12-gauge shotgun out here. I'll have to find out exactly when that was. I think it got put up, but I'm not positive.
What did that shotgun look like?
It was camouflage. I want to say it was a Benelli or maybe a Beretta. I can't remember which brand it is. I don't think it was out here recently, but I'm not positive.
And the shotgun that you had when the deputies pulled up, where did that gun come from?
I went to the house and I got a gun, probably overreacting, but...
And was that when you pulled up and saw them?
No, I came out and, I called 911 first. Talked to them for a little while, and then I told her
that
I was that I was gonna go to the house.
Okay.
And that I would let artists know when they got here that I had a gun.
Okay. Do you happen to have a list of all your guns?
I can make one. I don't have one, but
Yeah.
I can make one.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, you know, so we can compare if that shotgun was out here, now it's missing.
Absolutely.
Try to figure that out.
No, absolutely.
And I know living up here in the country, you probably have more than one or two.
We do. We probably have 20, 25 guns,
Yeah. Shotguns, rifles.
pistols.
Any rifles?
Yes, sir.
What kind of rifles?
All kinds.
Yeah.
All kinds. I mean, you name it across the board, we have them.
Okay.
I mean, all of them we have are, you know, in our hunting room, in our house.
What was their schedule today? When did they get home?
My son works for my brother, and he was coming home to deal with sunflowers. He got here. He got here pretty early because he and I rode around looking at everything for a good little while, probably 45 minutes to an hour. Maggie had things she did in Charleston, and she had a doctor's appointment in Charleston, and she got back here. It was fairly late.
Was it dark yet when Paul got home?
No, Paul got home early.
Early, okay. So before dinner time?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Lunchtime? Or?
No, ma'am.
What brother does Paul work for?
John Marvin.
And what does Paul do for him?
Everything.
Handyman?
Yes, sir.
Was it unusual for Maddie to feed the dogs this time of night or check on them?
Oh, no. I mean, she played with those dogs all the time. And it's especially common for her to, you know, she's been gone for a while, to come and let especially two of them out to run.
Okay. So she pretty regularly comes out here in the evenings?
Very regular.
Okay.
Comes out here a lot.
Do you have any cameras on the property?
I have deer cameras, but none, you know, around up here
Where are they at?
on different deer stands.
Okay, so deep in the woods.
Well, not necessarily deep in the woods. Some of them are in fields, and
Okay.
but there's none that, you know, are near here.
Okay.
What doctor appointment? What doctor did Maggie see today?
I forget the guy's name. Maggie's been having trouble with her. She's been having trouble with her stomach and her tooth. I'm not positive. It was sort of a routine visit, and I can't remember. She told me the name of it, and I can't. I want to say Gordine is who I think she saw.
So was she back home around supper time? Or 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
I don't think she got back quite that early. I think she got back a little bit later than that.
Okay. What did you do today? Were you in the office or?
No, I was home. I came home. Paul and I messed around. I was up at the house. Laid down, took a nap on the couch, probably, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. I got up, I called Maggie, didn't get an answer, and I left to go to my mom's, She had said she might ride with me, but she normally doesn't when I go over there. And I think I texted her. And she's very good about answering the phone, so that was odd, or calling me back. So that was odd, but it wasn't that big a deal.
And what time was that?
What time was what?
That you sent her a text message?
Alright. I texted her at 9:08, going to check on Elle Bee right back. And then I texted her at 9:47. That must be when I started to come back. I think I called her before that. But let me make sure. Pretty sure that I called her 9:45. And then I tried to call. And then, no, I think that was riding. I think that might have been riding over there. Three. I mean, my calls were right here.
Yeah.
So, obviously this is when I, at 10:06,
he would be able to watch it on the internet, but kind of like the jury, members of the jury, when they are members of the jury that are not sequestered, which I think they are. Well, like the Johnny Depp trial, they weren't sequestered, and it played all. I mean, you couldn't turn the TV on without seeing it. You couldn't get on social media without seeing it. So, I mean, it was there. They just were instructed not to watch it because he is a witness. I think technically they should have instructed him, you can't be here and you don't need to watch anything. Because that's usually witnesses are not allowed to sit in the gallery and watch. And witnesses are told, don't watch it. So he would have had access to it, but most of the time they're not allowed to sit in there, and they are instructed by the judge not to watch anything covering the trial. Sean says Buster can't be too much of a witness. He wasn't in town.
Yes, sir. Anybody else want some gum?
What did he do? Sorry, I don't need it.
Behind Danny's head is a case of water.
It's not a big deal.
I got some right here.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sure we're going to have much more questions.
I'm available to that. You let me know.
What's another number in case I can't get you on your cell?
I don't have a house phone.
Okay.
My office number. I can give you my brother's cell phone.
All right. What's Randy's?
Hey, Randy's is 803-943-8881.
And John's?
My Marvin's 843-321-5508.
And you said your dad's in the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Which hospital? Charleston or?
Savannah and St. Joseph's.
Is he doing okay or what's?
He's having a really, really hard time. He's got a lot going on. He's doing okay, doing everything, but he's got a lot going on.
How Maggie's getting over today?
Somerville.
Have you been in touch with them?
Contacted. Yes, I had my brother call Bart, the wife of his sister, and the husband of Maggie's sister, so that they could go and tell Maggie's parents. I felt like they needed to hear it in person, and they were going there and calling me. So they must not be there yet.
Maggie's parents in Somerville?
Yes, and her mom just had a knee replacement surgery, and her dad really has trouble getting around nowadays.
Do you have any other children?
I do. I have a 24-year-old.
That's right, you said. What's his name?
Buster, Richard Alexander Jr.
He goes by Buster.
He goes by Buster.
Is he here tonight?
He's on his way.
Laura, you got anything?
This one's hard, but when you first saw Paul, you said you tried to flip him over. Was he laying on his back or on his stomach?
Just like he
Just like he is. They weren't able to move him. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did he help Maggie a lot out here with the animals?
He helped everybody with everything.
Okay. So it was kind of routine for him to be out here as well.
This place is his absolute passion.
Okay.
I tried to turn him, and then I checked, and then I think I already did, but I checked him.
And when you first pulled into the property, did you come from this direction where all our police cars are, or which way did you come
I went to the house,
Okay.
and then I came from the house
This way.
straight here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, where my vehicle is parked is probably,
Is where it was. Okay.
well, no, maybe not exactly, but it was pretty close, because I came back the same route
That's right, because you went back to get your shotgun.
when I came back.
I can't think of anything else right now, but we'll certainly be in touch.
Thank y'all for everything y'all are doing.
So, just to kind of let you know what's going to go on, we're going to be out here for quite some time. The coroner will take custody of Paul and Maggie.
Can I answer that? Yeah. What? No, we're finished. Let me come out there where I'll be here when he gets here. No, don't let him come up here. Okay, yeah. I think we're about done. All right, thank you.
Buster, get here.
Yes, sir. I
Um,
dropped my card. Thank you.
So the coroner will come over and talk to you. There'll be the autopsy and everything, and then go from there. But we'll come to you before we leave.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Rutland.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Here, you want this water?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yep.
What time was that interview?
I think it was 1 a.m.
Would you dispute 1257?
No, that sounds correct.
Would you describe that as an aggressive interview?
No.
As a part of your investigating procedure, had you listened to the 911 tape prior to this?
We did.
And you say we, who's we?
Myself and Special Agent Owen.
Did you have, can everybody hear? Just speak in the mic, please. Speak in the mic, please, ma'am. Did you have that 911 knowledge in your mind when you were listening to this? Had you already heard it?
Yes.
And on the 911 tape, how long had Alex Murdaugh told the 911 operator it had been since he'd seen Maggie Murdaugh?
He's estimated 1.5 to 2 hours.
To 2 hours. 1.5 to 2 hours. And on this tape, your interview, what had he said about seeing Maggie? When was the last time he'd seen Maggie Murdaugh?
That she about 2 hours.
Did he say he took a nap?
He took a nap
Did he say where he went after that?
to check on his mother with Alzheimer's in Hampton.
Okay. Did you find that unusual?
I did.
Why?
Just the time of night.
Why?
With her being an Alzheimer's patient, they tend to be worse at night, so I seemed it was strange to go visit.
He's like, what?
What time was the 911 call?
It was 10.
Just speak louder, please.
I'm sorry. I have to check my notes.
We'll put a check with it. I'm sorry.
Okay. It was 10. $10:06.
And this interview was 12:57.
Yes, that's correct.
In your interview, in Agent Owen's interview, did the defendant Alex Murdaugh tell you he tried to turn Paul over?
He did.
And did he say whether or not he had tried to check Paul's pulse and or Maggie's pulse?
He stated he tried to check both.
What did Mr. Murdaugh, the defendant, Alex Murdaugh, say about the phone, if anything, that was in Paul's possession?
He stated his phone popped out of his pocket
When?
when he tried to check his pulse.
Did he try to turn him over?
That's what he said.
get, there's a scene here where Alexander Murdaugh is looking at his phone. Do you remember that?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Can you actually see the phone in there and the times and the messages on the video that he's looking at?
You can on the bottom left of the screen.
And what was that in response to that he was looking at that?
When I asked what time, he texted Maggie.
So you saw those on his phone looking at those when y'all were talking to him in the car?
I couldn't see from where I was sitting, but reviewing the video, I could see it.
Reviewing the video, did you see it?
Yes.
I've got a transcript here, but at the end of the video, toward the end of the interview, did Mr. Murdaugh say again he tried to turn over his son, Paul Murdaugh?
He did.
That he tried to check him?
That's what he said.
And I know I asked you at the first, but I may not have done it too eloquently. Did he first tell you he tried to turn him over?
Yes, he did.
And I figured it out?
Yes,
And his cell phone popped out of his pocket?
that's correct.
And everybody heard it, but then something with it thinking maybe, then I put it back down really quickly, then I went, and you can't really understand the rest of it.
Yes.
What did you think about the phone popping out?
That was seemed.
The objection is sustained.
Have you ever moved dead weight?
I have.
If we could start with Elmo, please. Judge, these are a couple of these pictures that I think they had this on top of it, just to warn everybody, these are graphic photos. First is number 2. Who's this a picture of?
That's Maggie Murdaugh.
Did the defendant say he checked her pulse?
He did.
Did he tell you where?
He did not.
And before I get to it, did the defendant ever tell you he'd been down to the kennels that night in this interview?
No.
After his nap, where did he say he went?
Went to check on his mother in Hampton.
Just again, if you keep your computers covered, please. Defense 1.
Hold he went right into acting. He's like looking over up, but then it starts and he's like, that looks like such acting to me. We're going to back it up for a second for you guys to see that.
Get back over here. Did the defendant tell you he tried to get the pulse of his son, Paul Murdaugh?
He did.
Did he tell you where he tried to get the pulse?
He did not. Just that he tried to turn him.
Say that last
He
time.
tried to turn him.
And he told you he tried to turn him more than once, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Objection, leading, Your Honor.
How many times did he tell you he tried to turn him?
Twice.
I think you testified you tried to lift dead weight, right?
I have.
Can you describe what's around Paul Murdaugh?
Blood, brain matter.
And if you were to, where's his hands?
Underneath his body.
If you were to check the pulse of his hands, how would you do it?
You would have to try to lift him up and get his arms out from under him.
Underneath
Correct.
and roll it.
Correct.
By the way, where's his phone?
It's laying on the backside of his shorts.
Right there. Popped out, he said.
Yes.
Is that his brain?
That is.
Mr. Harpootling said blown out of his head.
Correct.
If you tried to take the pulse at the neck, how would you do it?
You would have to try to lift his shoulder to get access his neck.
This way?
Correct.
Whether you're this way or this way.
Correct.
Either underneath or over here. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right? Is that
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. When you saw Alex Murdaugh, when you first came up to him, tell me just a minute.
Is she going to sit down?
Okay, stay up here. That's fine.
Why are you questioning her not in the chair?
Well, I made sure something again. Judge, I apologize.
I was going to back it up to show how he immediately went into, but I guess I think it was here.
Did you observe it?
I did.
Why?
Just to make mental notes of what he was wearing and how he looked.
What were your mental notes?
That he was clean.
Say that again.
That he was clean.
When you were in the car with him,
Correct.
if you tried to take the pulse at the
I feel like he immediately,
neck, how would you do it?
I feel like he immediately goes into like, oh, anytime they start, immediately.
You would have to try to lift his shoulder to get access his neck.
This way?
Correct.
Whether you're this way or this way.
Correct.
Either underneath or over here. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right? Is that,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. When you saw Alex Murdaugh, when you first came up to him, tell me just a minute.
Is she going to sit down?
Okay, stay up here. That's fine.
Why are you questioning her not in the chair?
Well, I made sure something again. Judge, I apologize. I see you. Just go back and sit down. Thank you. When you first saw Alex Murdaugh at the corner, did you observe it?
I did.
Why?
Just to make mental notes of what he was wearing and how he looked.
What were your mental notes?
That he was clean.
Say that again.
That he was clean.
When you were in the car with him, you were behind him.
I was.
Did you observe his hands?
I did.
Did you see his arms?
I did.
And when you were out on the side of the road beforehand, did you see his shirt,
I did.
his pants,
Yes.
his shoes?
Yes.
Now, when you were at the scene, when you first got there, did you see any footprints in the blood?
No.
Did you see any knee prints in the blood?
No.
Anywhere around the body?
No.
Did you look at his shoes?
I did.
What kind of shoe? Alex Murdaugh's shoes. What kind of shoes were they?
They were like an athletic tennis shoe.
Did you see anything that appeared to be blood on his shoe?
I did not.
I want you to look at the ladies and gentlemen of this jury. Did you see what appeared to be blood on Alex Murdaugh's hands?
I did not.
On his arm?
No.
On his shirt?
None.
On his shorts?
No.
On his shoes?
I did not.
How long was this after the 911 call?
2 hours, 2 to 3 hours.
All this fresh in his mind?
Yes.
How would you describe the defendant's hands when you saw him when you were interviewing him? How would you describe his hands?
They were clean. Clean.
How would you describe his arms?
They were clean.
How would you describe his t-shirt?
Clean.
How would you describe his shorts?
Clean.
How would you describe his shoes?
They were clean.
Bad question, though. Was his phone taken that night, Alex Murdaugh?
I believe so.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure. No, sir.
So it may not have been taken.
Yeah.
Now, you were working with, hey, don't stand up. Miss David Owens, you were working with this lady?
Yes.
When you, after this interview, did you go to the actual house at 4147 now?
I did.
Okay. Did you go inside?
Just in the foyer, yes.
Okay. Did Agent Owens go inside?
He did.
Okay. Were the defendant's shirt, shoes, and pants collected by Agent Owens?
Yes.
You didn't collect them, he did?
I did not.
Okay. And those are the same shirt, shoes, and pants he was wearing there?
Correct.
And SLED got them that night?
Yes.
Okay. After this, did you assist SLED in some things that came up in the investigation?
I did.
Okay. And I don't believe this would be objected to, but did you assist them with getting Maggie's car?
I did.
Okay. Some other cell phone evidence?
Search warrants.
Were there a search of some of the areas that you attended?
Yes.
In and around?
Yeah.
Moselle?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Search of ponds?
Yes.
Okay. So you assisted SLED at some point throughout this investigation?
Yeah. Anytime they needed anything from the sheriff's office, Agent Owen could go through me or my captain, whether it was storing a vehicle as evidence or using our evidence bay to process anything. I was there to assist in any way that they needed.
And did you assist, I guess, in the helping with Alex Murdaugh's car as far as getting anything out of that car?
No, SLED processed that.
Now, if you just listen to my questions, I'm not going to lead you. I just want to ask you one final question. Is the individual in this courtroom who told you he tried to take the pulse of Maggie and Paul, is the individual in this courtroom who told you he tried to turn Paul over, told you that once, twice? Is the individual in this courtroom that you took that statement from, that we saw in this video, in this courtroom, and is the individual you described as clean from head to toe in this courtroom?
Yes, he is.
Please point him out for the jury.
He's sitting at the defense table wearing a grayish-brown jacket and a white shirt.
Your Honor, we'd like the record to reflect she has pointed out the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
It does.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have you go to the jury room for a break. Please do not discuss the case.
I mean, all that sounds pretty interesting because it sounds like he cleaned up. You know what I'm saying? He says he took their pulse, but hold on. For Paul's pulse, you would have had to get his hands out from underneath him, or like pull his shoulder back to slide your hands up underneath. So, if he would have did that, he should have gotten blood on his hands. Also, he would have had to kneel down. You know, like he said, he tried to roll Paul.
Leaves the courtroom. That's not an invitation for conversations until a recess takes place. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes.
He said, we're excusing the jury. That is not an invitation for conversation. Shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so if he would have walked over there, there should have been footprints, but there were none. Or some knee prints, you know, from where he knelt down, there were none. And there should have been some blood. But there was no blood. So I think he went and cleaned himself. Have popcorn. Obviously, I think he went and cleaned himself, and it was because he was really covered in blood. I think he did it. Or he had on, like, something completely covering his body, and just ripped it off, like the raincoat. Maybe like the raincoat and long gloves. I don't know. All right, let's speed it up. Pray that Mama don't fall asleep.
I can see his brains. And I ran over to Maggie. Actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. You know, I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out. His cell phone popped out of his pocket. I started trying to do something with it, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down really quickly. Then I went to my wife, and I could see.
Did you touch Maggie at all?
I did. I touched them both. I tried to do it as limited as possible, but I tried to take their pulse on both of them. And, you know, I called 911, pretty much right away, and she was very good.
She was very good.
I talked to her. I told her I was going to get off the phone to call some family members I did that.
What family members did you call?
I called my brother Randy, and I called my brother John. And I tried to call a little boy, a real good friend that's right around the corner from here, but I didn't get him.
What all was around Paul when he walked up?
Blood.
Anything else?
I mean, there was some body thing, yes sir.
I mean, like any other evidence? I mean, you said the phone fell out of the pocket. But did you see anything else that didn't belong or shouldn't belong or that wasn't part of Paul?
No, sir, not. No, sir.
How about Maggie?
No, sir.
You didn't see anything about her now? What made you come out here tonight?
I went to, my mom's a late stage Alzheimer's patient. My dad's in the hospital. My mom gets anxious when she does. I went to check on them, and Maggie's a dog lover, and she fools with the dogs. And I knew she was going to the kennel. I was at the house. I left the house and went to my mom's. For just a little while. Tried to call her, didn't laugh. Texted her, no response. When I got back to the house was obviously nobody was in there. So I figured they're still up here fooling around. Paul was gonna be getting set up to plant. Our sunflower seeds got sprayed and died, and he was refiguring to plant the sunflower seeds. So I came back up here and drove up and saw.
Such a crucial recording. Let me bring in a forensic death investigator from Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan. He's back with us. So Joseph, that recording is critical. I mentioned before him saying towards the end of it, that he never went to the dog kennels is crucial because why? Because of course, the prosecution says he lied about that they're going to introduce cell phone evidence that suggests otherwise. What did you make of overall his statements and his demeanor in that recorded interview?
He seems very ordered in his thought. He's not scattered. Many times what you'll see when people have gone through a traumatic event like this, they're kind of all over the board. But the fact that he was able to kind of follow through with this and give them, he didn't hesitate really in answering questions. He moved straight through this. And again, this is not an interrogation, just so that we understand that. This is simply an interview just to determine information. There's a huge difference here. And so this is merely an interview at this point in time to try to determine what had happened. Remember, he's principal here. He's the person that discovered the remains and called them in. And so they're trying to assess not just what's going on at the scene in that moment in time, but also things like physical safety that are at the scene. Is there anybody else that might be out here that might do harm to you or us or anybody else? They're just trying to get a sense of what's happening. He's first eyes on the scene. And so I didn't really see anything here that would give an indication that he was disordered. He seemed very ordered in his speech and the way he was relating what he saw as facts at that particular time.
And two other things I'll note about that: there was no blood anywhere on Alex Murdaugh. There's nothing on his arms, hands, t-shirt, short shoes, all clean. And we'll get into that at Joseph. And also, apparently they looked at his text messages and it kind of corroborated his story. Joseph, stand by. I want to bring in our boots on the ground on this, Law and Crime's very own Elizabeth Milner. She's going to give us a behind-the-scenes look of what's happening. Elizabeth, thanks for coming on. It's great to see you. Let's start with the general mood around the courthouse. What has it been like so far on this next day of trial?
Hey, Jesse, great to see you. Yeah, I'm here in Colleton County, South Carolina, and actually stuff is starting to ramp up here on the ground. We've been seeing a little bit more of spectators come to kind of view as a public the trial of Alex Murdaugh. Now, we all know that he's on trial for the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. And so it's kind of been interesting to see, like, we were thinking an influx of people would come in all from South Carolina in order to watch this trial. If you can take some video of the gallery, you could see that there are just lines of kind of empty rows and seats. Most of the people inside the gallery are actually members of the media, some more coming in from the public as well. But just speaking to people, a lot of people know that Murdaugh name. They're familiar with the trial, but a lot of people are coming from the surrounding areas of South Carolina as opposed to those from right here in Colleton County. So we've been seeing people come from, you know, the Murdaugh-dominated Hampton County and other surrounding areas, but none of these big lines that maybe we've seen in previous trials, like the Johnny Depp case, for instance. But it's very interesting to see, Jesse.
Yeah, that Johnny Depp scene was still nothing quite like it. Now, I understand you've had a chance to speak with people at the trial. How are they feeling about Alex Murdaugh right now?
Yeah, we're kind of hearing both sides. A lot of people, not one person really has come out and said, you know, I think he's guilty of the financial schemes, the murders, all of that sort. It's really a lot of people coming out to kind of just say, you know, I'm waiting to hear what's all going on. You know, not a lot of people, not a lot of people in this area have not heard of the name Alex Murdaugh.
Wonder what's up with all the sirens in the background. Holy moly.
Before the jury comes in, I want to review a few of the rules of court and rules of procedure with counsel. First, Rule 20 of the Rules of Criminal Procedure provides that there shall be no argument on objections unless requested by the court. And that's Rule 19. Rule 19? 18. Rule 18. No argument on objections unless requested by the court. Rule 18, there we go. Rule 18B. Then Rule 43H of the Rules of Civil Procedure, which is applied to the Rules of Criminal Procedure through Criminal Procedure Rule 37, I believe it is. 37, yes. And that is that only one counsel for each party shall examine or cross-examine a witness. And by extension to that, the court's order, and that's Rule 611 and the procedure established in the courts of this state, the examining counsel only shall make objections. If Mr. Griffin is going to cross-examine, Mr. Griffin makes objections. Likewise with the state's attorney general, not any and everyone can jump up and object and argue. Any questions about either of those rules?
Your Honor, I understand the rule. So, as with the witness they were attempting to get to testify about blood in the water yesterday, I objected, and it was a speaking objection. I apologize. But when I object, will you, and sometimes invite argument, or I'm trying to preserve objections in the record, and I'm just wondering, and since he doesn't get an appeal, that's not his concern, how would you like me to handle that?
Well, the objection speaks for itself. If the parties wish to place something on the record at some point in time after a witness after the examination is over, the court will give you that opportunity. But if we have speaking objections, if one party makes an objection and proceeds to argue it through a speaking objection, I give equal time to the opposing side. So we end up having a debate rather than that interrupts the trial and all of that. I certainly understand the defense's right to make a proper record, and we'll address that as is needed without there being a speaking objection.
For instance, they've listed hearsay, in my opinion, and I object. Should I say objection hearsay or just object?
Yes, sir.
I can do that.
Yes, sir. The legal basis for the objection.
Okay.
Only.
Not a real advocacy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
All right. Let's bring the jury.
The jury is present.
Thank you. Cross-examination. Mr. Griffin.
Detective Cross, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jim Griffin.
Detective
Jim
Rutland.
Rutland, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Jim Griffin, and I represent Alex Murdaugh. You had testified on direct examination a moment ago that it was, you believe, somewhat unusual for Mr. Murdaugh to go visit his mother as late as 9:06 on a Monday evening. You recall testifying?
I do.
And you were sitting in the car when he was being interviewed, and you recall him saying that his father, Mr. Randolph Murdaugh, had just been put in the hospital that very day.
That's correct.
And that it was an unusual day because Mr. Randolph Murdaugh was not with Ms. Libby Randolph, and she gets anxious when that occurs. Remember that?
I remember him saying something along those lines.
And in that context, you don't criticize a son who goes to visit his mother who has early onset dementia on the very day in the afternoon that the father is admitted to the hospital. You're not here to criticize him for that, are you?
No, I didn't criticize. I just made a mental note that was interesting.
Okay. And you walked the crime scene when you arrived, and you made some mental notes and observations that you subsequently recorded in a report, did you not?
I did.
And one of the things that you mentally noted and then subsequently reported was that there was a tremendous amount of blood spatter in the feed room area and around where Paul was murdered. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there was brain matter and organic matter all about the place where Paul was murdered, correct?
That's correct.
And I think you even described that there was matter, that blood that went up to the ceiling and through the door and spatter everywhere, right?
That's correct.
And you also told the jury that Alec was clean. And you're referring to his shirt was clean, correct?
Correct.
His shorts were clean, correct?
Correct.
You remember the litany of Mr. Matters? Shorts, shirts, shoes were clean, correct?
That's correct.
He was clean, correct?
To my visual eye, he was clean, yes.
And to your visual eye, it did not look like he had just blown his son's head off in the confines of a feed room where splatter is everywhere. Isn't that correct?
I didn't say that.
Well, let me ask you, in your mind's eye, that night on June 7th, did he look like someone had just blown his son's head off, spatter going everywhere?
Again, I can't say that for sure. A lot of things would come into play to affect that. Distance is one of them.
Well, certainly if he appeared that way on the night of June the 7th, you, a sworn law enforcement officer, you would have initiated a process to take him into custody, I suspect, wouldn't you?
No, that was not my role that evening. I was just assisting.
Well, one of the things you did that evening, Ms. Rutland, was you obtained a search warrant, did you not?
I did.
And that was your first official duty in connection with this double homicide investigation, right?
That's correct.
And I'm going to show you Exhibit 3, Your Honor. I shared it with Mr. Meadows during the break, and asked the witness to identify it. You recognize Exhibit 3?
I do. This is the search warrant I got that night.
Your Honor, we'd move Exhibit 3 into evidence this time, I believe, without objection.
Okay, sir.
It's admitted.
I have it. So, tell the jury, please, Exhibit 3 is, well, first, let's just talk about a search warrant. What is a search warrant?
It grants us the right to search a certain item that may be potential evidence in a case.
And this search warrant was for what property?
4147 Moselle Road in Islandton, County of Colleton, State of South Carolina.
And it covers the whole, roughly 1,700 acres for the whole property, does it not?
That is correct.
And it covers the house, the residence where you went into the foyer, right?
Correct.
It covers all the outbuildings, correct?
Correct.
And it covers, and it gives you the right to seize any type of evidence, correct?
That is correct.
Let me see if I can get Mr. Elmo to work. Can you turn it on, please? I've got to turn sideways. All right. Let's see if we can read that back. Is there lighting? That's much better. Can we zoom in? All right. Okay. Got it. Thank you. So, and this is the search warrant, right?
Yes, it is.
And it says description of premises to be searched. And here it's 4147 Moselle Road, Islandton. And then there's a PIN number. What's the PIN number?
That's a property identification number that's assigned to every parcels of real property within the county. It's set by the tax office.
It says the property to be searched are any residences, vehicles, outbuildings, kennels, or sheds, right?
That is correct.
And then it says the description of the property to search and be seized, and that's under description of property, right?
Correct.
And you prepared this document for the magistrate to sign.
I did.
And here says evidence that may be used or taken during the commission of a crime of homicide to include but not limited any item, tool, clothing, gloves, masks, hats, hoodies, shoes, boots, jewelry, firearms, ammunition, shell casings, gunshot residue, weapons, identification documents, any paperwork, etc. It says any evidence inside vehicles on the property, any evidence found in outbuildings or sheds, any tire, shoe impressions, any and all DNA to include but not limited to fingerprints, touch DNA, etc. Any drugs, narcotics, drugs, paraphernalia, any and all cellular phones, phone records to include incoming, outgoing calls, text messages, voice messages, etc. Then it goes on to talk about photographs and whatnot. It's all encompassing, isn't it?
It is.
And this is basically as broad as a search warrant that you draft because it's a homicide investigation and it gives you carte blanche on the property of the crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
And with the search warrant, you had the authority to go in the house and look for unclean, dirty clothes, did you not?
I wasn't in that capacity that evening. I was assisting.
Well, the search warrant provided that authority to law enforcement, did it not?
It would have, yes.
And you mentioned that you got into the law enforcement business because you're CSI TV junkie of sorts. Did I understand you to say that?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, and you've seen CSI shows where they go and they look in the drains of showers or sinks and to see if blood residue had been recently flushed through there. That's possible, is it not?
It could be.
And that's just not on TV. I mean, that's skills that SLED's crime team has available to them, correct?
I don't know what they have available, but that would be a crime scene unit question.
The and actually there were the clean clothes that Alex Murdaugh was wearing that night. They were seized, were they not?
Yes.
Okay. And the clean shoes were seized, correct?
Yes.
And the clean shirt was seized, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay. But that you were in the house when that happened, but you didn't collect the clothes, right?
I did not collect anything. I stood by in the foyer.
And who did the collection? Do you recall?
Special Agent Owen.
And when was he assisted by anybody?
I was just standing by. They went to a back bedroom, and I was in the foyer area. It was like an open floor plan.
And do you recall how? Do you recall what Mr. Owen, Detective Owen, Special Agent Owen, apologize, Detective Owen, Special Agent Owen, did you observe what he collected the clothes in?
I did not.
Would he collect all the clothes and put them in one paper bag?
I don't recall.
Now, the jury heard the complete video audio of the interview with Alex Murdaugh on the evening, early morning hours of June the 8th, and yet you were asked to repeat some of the things that he said, and I want to, I mean, the tape speaks for itself. I don't want anyone to misconstrue your testimony, so I just want to ask you, are you saying that Mr. Murdaugh tried to turn his son over 2 times on that tape, or that on 2 occasions he described one incident that he tried to turn his son over?
The latter, that he explained twice, 2 different times.
So in answer to your questions, if anyone would walked away thinking that Alex Murdaugh told you that he tried to turn him over 2 times, that would just be mistaken, and we've now clarified it, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you never asked, or Special Agent Owen never asked Mr. Murdaugh how he tried to turn his son over, correct? That's right.
Correct.
And so, you see Mr. Meadows crawling around the floor down here as trying to reenact something, but that night he never was asked specifically, what did you do to try to turn your son over, correct?
That's correct. We did not ask that.
And that night he was not asked specifically how the phone popped out of his pocket while you were trying to turn him over, correct?
Correct.
And that night he was not asked specifically how far were you able to move Paul, if at all, when you tried to flip him over, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, did he really even say that I was trying to flip him over to check his pulse?
I'd have to check the transcript, but I believe he said something along those lines.
What did he tell you where he tried to check Paul's pulse?
He did not.
So we don't know from your interview, or Special Agent Owen's interview, how he tried to turn him over, how the phone popped out, or at least how Alex describes it, because he wasn't asked, and where on Paul's body he attempted to check his pulse, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked questions about whether there were knee prints and footprints by Paul's body, next to his body, right?
Yes, I was asked that.
And did you do such a forensic analysis, investigation to see if there were boot prints or footprints around Paul's body?
I looked with my eyes.
Okay. And were you aware that before you got there? Well, what time did you get there?
Can I check my notes?
Sure.
Okay.
You can take this down. Through Mr. Elmo. I think I'm through for now.
12:22 a.m. I was on scene.
Okay, 12:22 a.m. And Paul's body and Maggie's bodies were covered up with a sheet, but still present, correct?
Correct.
So when you were looking at Paul's body, just observing whether there are footprints near him, you couldn't see right next to his body because of the sheet, could you?
The sheet was mostly on his body, not on the cement on the ground next to the body.
Was it a fitted sheet?
No, but it wasn't a queen sheet either.
Okay. And then jury has seen photos of the sheet. Were you aware that Captain Chapman and others went around Paul's body and lifted the sheet up to see if there was a gun underneath him?
Not at the time I was at the scene, no.
Well, I take it you did not observe their footprints anywhere in the area either then, right?
Not that I recall.
And you said that Alex's pants were clean. Remember saying that?
I remember saying that.
What color pants did he have on?
Khaki.
All right. And are you aware of any forensic testing that had been done to the pants to see whether there was blood on the pants?
That night?
Subsequently?
No, there was nothing done that night forensically.
That night nothing was done forensically?
Not before I interviewed him, no.
Right. And you just did not observe any blood on his pants or in his pocket?
No, just simply speaking with him like this, looking him up and down, I did not see any blood on him.
And he didn't look like someone who had just been within feet of blowing Paul's head off, right?
Again, I can't say that. There's so many different factors that you would have to take into account.
Now, you did a lot more, I believe, that night. After you left, well, let's go back. When you got to the scene, you partnered up with Agent Owen, correct?
That is correct.
And you saw inside the shed, and you observed there was wadding on the floor near his feet, Paul's feet.
Correct.
And when we say wadding, what are you talking about?
The internal components of a shotgun shell.
And then you saw in the rear window of the shed there were several holes, right?
That's correct.
And you described in your report that you saw large amounts of blood spatter and brain skull matter were on the door to the shed and on items within the storage building. You saw all that, right?
That's correct.
And then you went and examined Maggie's body, did you not?
I wouldn't say examined. I would just say I looked at her.
And one of the things that you noticed when you were looking at Maggie's body, I believe, you said you noticed there are a few clumps of her hair and a broken earring were located near a UTV tire, right?
That is correct.
And what's UTV tire?
I'm sorry?
What do you mean by UTV?
All-terrain vehicle, like a four-wheeler, side by side.
Okay. And you talked about these foot impressions that you observed, right?
I did.
And I said I was done with Mr. Elmo, but I'm not. Can we put these back up, please? Can you turn on Elmo? It's on. Oh, there it is. How do you zoom in, Doug? Let's just change the color. Okay. All right. I think that's good. Okay, hang on. May not be a good one. Thanks. You mentioned that you told investigators that worked for me and Mr. Harpootlian that the boot prints were not yours in these photos, right?
That is correct.
But now you told the jury that the boot prints are yours.
That's incorrect. Those are not my boot prints.
Okay. Whose boot prints are they?
I don't know.
Oh, so okay. That's why I get to do this. So,
Objection to these comments.
Yes, let's pose questions.
So you don't know whose boot prints those are?
No.
All right. Now, one thing about this search warrant that I asked you about earlier, it was, do you have it up?
I couldn't remember if I gave it back to you or not.
I don't think you did. Okay. It's okay. It was never executed, was it? Sorry.
I handed this off to SLED agents once I was at the scene. Thank you.
You said you handed the search warrant off to SLED agents?
I did.
Okay. But to your knowledge, was it ever executed?
Yes, it was.
Or you think it was executed?
It was.
And why do you say that?
Because the SLED crime scene unit, I was present while they were processing the scene and executing the search warrant.
And so there are two ways that law enforcement can get access to property. One is through a search warrant, and one's by consent. Is that right?
That's correct.
Are you aware that Mr. Murdaugh gave SLED, Colleton County, any law enforcement, FBI, carte blanche consent to search his property?
That wasn't relayed to me. I was tasked with getting a search warrant, so I did.
Okay, and once a search warrant is executed, a return is filed with the magistrate who issued it, right?
That's correct.
And you never filed a return on that search warrant, right?
Do you have, like I said, it was given to SLED, so.
So we'll find out more about that. But to your knowledge, you didn't file a return, that's all you can say, right?
I don't recall. I have to check my notes.
You heard on the tape, you heard Mr. Murdaugh say you can do anything, look for anything. Do you remember him just giving consent to whatever you need?
As far as speaking with him, yes, I remember him saying that.
Okay. And you walked back through the crime scene one last time before you cleared the area on the morning of the 8th, is that right?
You could say that. We were walking around the whole night and staying out of the way of the crime scene unit.
Were you there after the crime scene unit left?
No, I was not. They were still processing when I left.
Okay. Do you know whether or not the crime scene unit left shotgun pellets behind in the feed room?
I have no knowledge of any of that.
20, 30, even more shotgun pellets left behind in the feed room. Were you aware of that?
Objection is sustained.
On Thursday, June 10th, 3 days, Thursday, June the 10th, you went with SLED, a number of SLED agents and law enforcement agents, went to meet with Mr. Murdaugh, Mr. Murdaugh's brothers, Randy and John Marvin, Mr. Murdaugh's son, and they all agreed to meet, and y'all found a location outside of Barnville, I believe. You remember doing that?
I do. I remember doing it.
And that was, during that, I believe you and a SLED agent interviewed Mr. Randy Murdaugh, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Randy Murdaugh agreed to allow the download of his cell phone, correct?
That's correct.
And gave consent, right?
He did.
And Mr. Alex Murdaugh, to your knowledge, gave consent to download his cell phone, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
And Mr. John Martin Murdaugh did the same, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Buster Murdaugh did the same, correct?
He did.
And everyone gave a voluntary interview that day, to your knowledge, right?
They did.
And then a little bit later, on the Wednesday, June 16th, you assisted SLED when they went out to the Moselle property and went diving, searching for, let me ask you, when you assisted SLED dive team, or did you assist SLED dive team on June 16th, 2021?
I did.
And with a search of the Moselle property, focusing on waterways, ponds, the Salkehatchie River access points for evidence from the crime, correct?
That's correct.
Were you looking for the firearms that were used to murder Maggie and Paul?
We were looking for anything that could have been linked to their murders.
And then you utilized ATVs and canvassed the entire 1,700 acres of land?
I did. That was my assignment that day.
And once again, that was done with consent by Mr. Murdaugh, correct?
That is correct.
And then went back the next day and dove another pond on the property. You remember doing that?
I didn't dive, but I was standing by, yes.
You were there?
Yes.
And again, that was with consent, right?
Correct.
And then you were given consent and you did a search of a white F-250 pickup that Paul normally drove, right?
That is correct.
And while you were there, Mr. Davis shows up, and Mr. Davis, you understood to be the caretaker for the dogs, right?
Yes, that's what he explained his job title was at Moselle.
And that, did you observe him doing his work that day?
I did.
Did you watch him wash down the dog runs?
I don't remember that part.
But you were able to look at his tire marks and make an assessment as to whether they appeared to match the tire marks that were seen under the shed portion next to the old airplane hangar, right?
That's correct. He parks under the canopy next to the UTV.
And then on Friday, June the 18th, you had a meeting and you looked at some photos, I believe crime scene photos and autopsy photos at SLED, correct?
I did.
And you made a mental note and you put it in your record that you noticed a few strands of what appeared to be brown hair, unable to determine the length from the photo in Maggie's hands and fingers, right?
That is correct.
And you thought that possibly was an indication of a struggle, that Maggie had grabbed someone, had their hair in her hands, right?
I didn't say that in my report, no.
Well, so why did you note it in your report?
Because it was an observation.
Well, you also noticed in your report that there were some injuries, what appeared to be to Paul's face, that like he had been some type of struggle, right?
I noted what to me could have been scratches or a bruise on his cheek.
And we heard some testimony yesterday about a bolo on the lookout for a white pickup that Paul normally drives. That pickup was found the next morning, correct?
That's correct. It was broken down.
Yeah, and you learned through your investigation that Paul had switched vehicles with his uncle John Marvin, and John Marvin was rushing to Moselle when he got the phone call in Paul's truck, and it broke down on the side of the road.
Yeah, that's correct. It was I believe Mr. Randolph struggled to get in and out of the truck.
Did Colony County Sheriff's Office put out a statement to the press on the morning of June the 8th that there's no need for the public to be alarmed?
I don't believe that came from our office. It did not come through CID for approval. I never seen that press release.
Listen, Buster must be the favorite because he's the only one that's alive, right? Wait, does he have more kids? Does he have more kids?
Was Alex Murdaugh, your assisting SLED, night of June the 7th, morning June the 8th, was Alex Murdaugh a suspect?
That night, everybody was a suspect.
Everybody? Can you be more specific? Who else were suspects besides?
Well, there was reasons we were asking certain questions. Who his best friend is, who, their routine each day. There were so many different scenarios it could have been that night. So, in my view, everybody was a suspect at that point.
Including Alex?
Including Alex.
May I beg the court's indulgence to consult, sir? Do we have the exhibit number that's in evidence before we play it? No. Your Honor, we're going to play a portion of Exhibit 1. We need to cover our screens. It is a portion of sensitive matter. Can you see that, Ms. Rutland?
I can, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's just stop right there. You see how far that sheet is on either side of Paul's body there?
At this point in time, yes, I see how it looks.
Is that roughly how far it was across Paul's body when you got there?
No, because I could see the top of his head.
Well, I'm talking about the width. of his body? Was it that far across?
I don't recall how it was because I could see parts of his body, but it was still on him.
Okay. We go ahead and play. Did you notice any footprints of the agent there inside the kennel?
No, I believe he's standing on the
in the food room.
In the feed room?
Right.
No. But it was starting to rain.
Okay, you stop right there, please. Can you back it up just 5 seconds? Yeah, play it. Okay. As soon as it goes down, a little bit further. All right, please stop. Was that how far across the sheet was when you observed Paul's body?
I don't remember. Like I said, when I got there, there was SLED agents as well as deputies standing around the scene, and I wasn't sure what had happened before I got there. I don't recall how the sheet was.
Well, was the sheet on Paul's body the entire time you were walking the crime scene?
No, eventually it was removed when the crime scene unit was ready to process his body.
And I just want to clear up. When you said Alec was wearing khakis, were you referring to shorts or long pants?
Shorts.
Is this from the video from the interview? Your Honor, we're going to publish a small portion of the video in the car, which is their last exhibit. Well, excuse me, that's from number 1. Are those the shorts he was wearing?
Yes.
Are those khakis or green?
Khaki style, green.
Okay. All right. That's all. You can take it. That's all the questions we have, Your Honor.
And we direct.
Yes, sir. Mr. Griffin asked you about some things you did after your interview the following days.
He did.
And you had mentioned a search warrant was executed. Were you working with SLED after June 8th? He's asked you about them. And did you work with them in executing search warrants?
I did.
Specifically on June 9. And who were you working with?
Special Agent Owen.
And I think Mr. Griffin asked you, there was a truck on the side of the road that went back to her brother John Marvin?
That's correct.
So that was the white truck?
Yes.
That was on the side of the road?
Yes.
And who did it belong to?
John Marvin.
Okay, and that was off the property of the sale?
That's correct.
Okay. So that has nothing to do with this case as far as suspect and this killing, does it?
No, it did not. We processed to rule it out.
What was that last thing?
We processed it to rule it out.
Okay. And he asked you about meeting with these folks and then talking to you. You were working with SLED doing that, weren't you?
I was.
SLED was investigating this case?
Yes.
Getting swabs? Getting swabs from folks? In general,
Yeah.
getting swabs?
I was present when swabs were taken, yes.
I'm not trying to say
Yeah.
you took them. I'm
No,
just following up on his
that's
question.
correct, yeah.
Were you present when interviews were taken?
I was present, yes.
And who was leading those interviews?
SLED.
Who was in charge?
SLED.
Were they investigating?
They were investigating.
Did you assist SLED with the initial timeline on phone calls?
I did.
On June 12th, did you assist SLED in removing an internal computer black box of a Chevy Suburban?
I did, by standing by.
On June 14th, did you assist SLED in obtaining a search warrant for Maggie Murdaugh's Mercedes?
I did.
And was Lieutenant Kent in charge of that?
He was.
Was SLED investigating?
SLED was investigating.
Was that what's referred to as the blue box?
Black box, I
Black
believe.
box? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Mhm.
Were you with SLED when Maggie Murdaugh's Mercedes was towed?
I was.
Did y'all have a search warrant for that?
We did.
I think he asked you, were you with SLED when ponds were searched in the area?
I was.
June 16th, would you dispute that, 2021?
No, that's correct.
And I think Mr. Griffin asked you about a truck that Mr. Davis was driving out of the shed. Were you able to confirm that the tire tracks in the shed were his?
I did, by looking at them.
By looking at them?
Yes. Mhm.
And I think Mr. Griffin asked you, did Mr. Davis say he was in and out of there a couple of times a day?
Twice a day, yes.
So those tracks inside the shelter were whose?
The dog caretaker, Mr. Davis.
And I think he asked you about water. Just remind me, the night you were there, did you see water around the bodies?
I did.
He asked you about some injuries, I think, that you had noted in your report. How did Paul fall?
Face down at an angle outside the feed room.
On what?
On his hands and arms.
Okay. But his face hit what?
The gravel.
Mr. Griffin asked you about how many times the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, had mentioned the turn his son Paul's body on page 2 of the transcript, or towards the front. Actually, I think I tried to turn Paul over first. You remember him saying that?
Yes.
You know, I tried to turn him over, and I don't know, I figured it out.
Yes.
And his cell phone popped out,
Correct.
and I tried to do something, thinking maybe, but then I put it back down.
Correct.
Were his words, I think I tried to turn him over.
Yes.
And later on, I tried to turn him, and then I tried to check it.
Correct.
I tried to turn him.
Correct.
He asked you about the sheet on the body. Did you see the front or the top of Maggie's, Paul's head?
I did.
Okay. And he asked you about the sheet over that body. I want to ask you about the sheet. When you saw Richard Alexander Murdaugh, did he have a sheet over him?
He did not.
Could you see his face, his hands, his body, his pants, and his shirt?
I could.
Did he look like somebody who just changed his clothes?
Yes.
Basis for the objection. Response, Mr. Meadows.
I couldn't hear what he said. I'm sorry. Basis for that. Did those clothes appear to be fresh?
They did.
Like they just come out of the laundry?
They could be.
There's no rule.
That's all okay.
Further questions?
Briefly on it, Detective, it was raining that night, wasn't it?
It started to rain before we did our interview.
Can you put up that photo of his shorts and shirt that we saw a minute ago? What's that? Waiting for him. No signal. No signal. Oh, here it is. Thanks. So these are the clothes that you saw him wearing sitting in the car?
Correct.
And it's your testimony those clothes look like they're freshly washed?
He's sweating and they're dry, so I would say yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You may step down. You call your next witness.
Delilah Servizion. Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. You affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Yes, Delilah Cirencione, Cirencione.
Good afternoon, Agent Cirencione.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell the jurors where you work?
I work for the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED. I'm currently in the Behavioral Science Unit, but was formerly in the Crime Scene Unit.
Now, did you tell me that the mic cannot be turned up more and it cannot be moved? It's fixed.
Is that better, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. From what time or what dates were you working in the SLED Crime Scene Unit?
I was with SLED Crime Scene from 2017 until 2022 in October.
So on June 7th of 2021, you were working with SLED Crime Scene?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And did you have an occasion to be involved in the investigation of Alex Murdaugh?
I did.
And what was your involvement in that investigation?
On June 8th, I was requested by my Lieutenant Todd Shank to respond to the call to medical center to collect buccal swabs or DNA swabs from 2 victims.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors what is a buccal swab?
A buccal swab is just a DNA swab, so it's a sterile Q-tip about this size, kind of like a Q-tip you use for your ear, and you swab the inside of the victim's cheeks for a DNA standard.
Do you just take one swab?
It comes in a set of 2 swabs within one container, so 2 swabs for each victim.
So you rub the inside of the person's cheek with that swab?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then what do you do with the swabs?
Then it's placed back inside the sterile container, and it's put into a coin envelope where it's sealed, dated, initialed, and the time of the collection is written on the envelope.
And it is sealed and dated and initialed to ensure that it is not tampered with. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
And if someone else analyzes or manipulates that swab, they should note that on the packaging?
I'm not sure how it goes after it's out of my control, but I chained all that over to Lieutenant Todd Shank once I went back to the SLED Forensic Laboratory.
So where did you turn those buccal swabs in?
After I left the medical center, I went back to SLED to the Forensic Laboratory and did a chain of custody with my lieutenant, and it was then in his custody.
And going back, just to be clear, who did you collect buccal swabs from?
1 female victim, Margaret, and 1 male victim, Paul Murdaugh.
Court's indulgence, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand for a moment.
Why isn't Alex standing? And what are they standing for? I presume the jury was already in there. So what are they doing right now? Maybe they do this when the jury, remember the jurors falling asleep? Maybe
Okay.
so.
proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Scinciano is going to show you these evidence baggies from SLED. Can you take a look at that? Thanks, ma'am. Those appear to be the buccal swabs that you collected from Paul and Maggie Murdaugh?
They are.
And how do you know that?
Both of these have my initials, the date, and a description on them, and they're sealed with my initials and a date.
And looking at those, can you tell if anyone else?
Yes, ma'am. There's a additional lab number, an item number, and 2 other initials on them.
So once you collected those, it would appear that someone from the lab performed analysis on those swabs.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer State's Exhibit 102 and 202 for identification purposes only, as State's Exhibit 202, 201, excuse me, being a buccal swab of Paul Murdaugh, and 202 being a buccal swab for Margaret Murdaugh, and Your Honor, we would actually move to enter these into evidence.
Any objection?
Okay.
They're entered into evidence as those exhibit numbers.
Thank you, Your Honor. Agent Scinciano, did you do anything else in regards to this case?
Yes, ma'am. Once I cleared from the Carlton Medical Center collecting the buccal swabs, I was requested by Captain Ryan Neal with the SLED Low Country Region to respond to the initial scene of the crime scene and collect a cell phone that was collected by their agents by a chain of custody.
And whose cell phone did you collect from Ryan Neal? Do you know?
I'm not aware of whose cell phone it was. It was a iPhone cell phone with a clear case.
And what did you do with that cell phone when you collected it?
The cell phone was collected by a chain of custody with Captain Ryan Neal, and then it was placed in a brown paper bag, sealed, and transported back to the SLED Forensic Laboratory, where it was chained over to Lieutenant Todd Shank.
No further. I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 203 and 205.
Mark for demonstration.
Agent Scinciano, this is State's Exhibit 204, which is the cell phone, along with a paper bag here. Can you tell that's the paper bag that you collected the cell phone and put that cell phone in that paper bag?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And how can you tell that?
It's got my handwriting on it with my initials and the date and a description of the cell phone.
This time the state would offer State's Exhibit 204 into evidence?
Object to it coming into evidence.
It'd be marked for identification, those two exhibits.
Not the phone, those are the chain. Is that the phone or is that the chain of evidence?
State's Exhibit 204 is the cell phone.
Marked for identification, Your Honor. We have no objection to it being marked
for identification.
And Agent Cirencione, if you could take a look at State's Exhibits 205 and 203 and tell us what those appear to be.
Both of these are chains of custody from myself to my lieutenant at the time and from Captain Ryan Neal to myself and then from myself to Todd Shank. They're both for the cell phone as well as the buccal swabs.
So those forms show where you collected or received the buccal swabs and the cell phone. Is that right?
They're a chain of custody, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ma'am, what is it you do for SWED? I mean, I understand you receive things, you take buccal swabs, but do you transport things, or do you have another role with SWED?
I'm currently a special agent with the Behavioral Science Unit.
Okay. At this time, in June of 2021, what were you doing?
In June of 2021, I was an agent with the Crime Scene Unit. With the Crime Scene Unit.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You help process crime scenes?
Yes, sir. I respond to the state and process crime scenes, collect evidence, document evidence, write reports, and so on, and testify in court proceedings.
And did you do any crime scene processing other than receiving these items in this case?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. So, what happened to, where's that cell phone?
All exhibits, once they've been marked for identification, they remain with the court reporters.
So, and I guess I'll put this right here. You received this cell phone. They didn't tell you it was Maggie Murdaugh's phone, did they?
No, sir.
But you received this cell phone on the morning of what? When?
It was June 8th.
June 8th, the morning after the murders.
Yes, sir. It was June 8th, 2021.
And where was the agent that gave this to you? Where did he meet you?
The initial crime scene.
Okay, at the house, by the dog pens, where?
In the yard near the kennels. And
okay.
Yes, sir.
And when you received it, was it on or off?
I don't recall.
Okay. Are you aware that cell phones can continue to receive information or erase memory after they're, at any point, but specifically when you're trying to preserve evidence? Do you know whether to turn it off or leave it on? Anybody instruct you on that?
I'm not an expert with the cell phone, so I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. Secondly, do you know what a Faraday bag is?
No, sir.
Okay, a Faraday bag, for your edification, is something you put an electronic device in so that no one can access it. It can't receive new data.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question?
I'm getting to it. And it can't erase data. Did you know that?
No, sir.
You're in the crime scene. Have you ever recovered phones before?
Yes, we recover cell phones, but they're typically collected directly by computer crimes or the regional agents.
Okay, so in this instance, though, they were not done the normal way, is what you're saying, the usual way. They gave it to you.
This way, it was just directly transferred to myself so I could bring it back to the SLED lab.
And no one cautioned you about putting it in a Faraday bag or not turning it off?
Not that day, no, sir.
So would that have been, and who gave it to you, agent?
Captain Ryan Neal with SLED Low Country.
Okay. And he just handed it to you, and you put it in a brown paper bag, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know whether it was on or off?
I don't recall.
And there's a passcode in this bag with it. Do you know where that came from?
I wrote the passcode that I was given on the brown paper bag.
Okay. And then somebody else wrote it on this piece of paper?
I did not write it on that piece of paper.
Okay. Just to be clear, you were not asked to handle this cell phone any different than if you'd been given a can of pork and beans to put it in, right? Is that right?
It depends if the pork and beans were evidence, but...
Well, assume there's a can of pork and beans and it's a piece of evidence and they want you to transport it. Did they give you any special instructions about the cell phone as opposed to a can of pork and beans?
No, sir. The cell phone was collected using gloves and directly placed into the brown paper bag, sealed, initials dated. A description was written, and it was transported straight to the forensic lab for processing.
And you don't know whether it was open, whether it had been shut down or was still on?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Can I put this back in the paper bag? I don't drop it again?
Sure.
Take $14 one moment. Thank you, ma'am.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. And you may call your next witness. Do you have another witness available at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You may approach.
We're having to get started, Your Honor.
That was pretty quick. Melinda Worley.
Do you affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth and nothing but the truth? Won't you take a seat in the witness stand? State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Melinda Worley, W-O-R-L-E-Y.
Good afternoon, Agent Worley.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell the jurors where you work?
I work for SLED
And how long have you worked for SLED?
since August of 2011.
And what is your current position at SLED?
I'm currently a senior criminalist in the latent print unit of the Forensic Services Lab.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about your education and training and other experiences at SLED that have led you to this point?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in anthropology from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, a Bachelor's of Science degree in Forensic Science from Mercyhurst College, a Master's of Science in Forensic Science from the University of Florida. Along with the master's degree, I also received a graduate certificate in forensic death investigation. I started at SLED in 2011 in the crime scene unit as a special agent. I followed through the training program that SLED provides in-house. I finished that, I believe it was July of 2012, and at that point I was able to take cases as a crime scene agent. But shortly thereafter I also started training in the discipline of footwear and tire tread examination. I finished that training in March of 2014, and so then I was doing crime scene and footwear and tire cases until August of 2022. I transferred out of the crime scene unit to the latent print unit. I also switched from being a Class 1 law enforcement officer, I was a senior special agent, to a Class 3 law enforcement officer, so now I'm a senior criminalist and a footwear and tire examiner.
And so, I mean, as far as crime scene goes, can you tell us about any special training that you have pertaining to crime scene specifically?
I've taken several courses in bloodstain pattern analysis, shooting reconstruction, archaeology, forensic archaeology, and clandestine graves, photography.
And back in 2021, you were a crime scene investigator, is that correct?
That's correct.
And now you are in the footwear and tire examination, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what would be the appropriate title for that?
Footwear and tire examiner.
Okay. And what other additional qualifications do you have to examine footwear and tire impressions?
I've taken 2 40-hour courses related to footwear, and I've completed approximately 50 footwear cases since I was completed my training in 2014. I've testified as an expert witness 9 times, qualified.
Is that in state court?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said about how many, I guess, cases have you had where you have examined footwear and tire impressions, if you could give us an estimate here?
As far as the actual scenes I've worked that had footwear, or just in general footwear?
In general.
I think it's around 50 cases.
Your Honor, at this time I would move to qualify Investigator Worley as an expert in footwear and tire examination.
Says the defense.
No objection, Your Honor. She's obviously qualified.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, where a witness, by virtue of their education and experience, become what the court considers an expert in some field, that witness can give opinion.
Yes, B. Welcome to the family. Wait. What? Casey, Yes, Casey, welcome to the B family. I don't know why I'm singing everything. I'm just trying to keep myself entertained. Because, y'all, the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial was like, I was like this. Like, I was not sleepy. I was so interested in it. But this one is super, like, I don't know why.
Opinions where lay witnesses typically cannot. And this witness has been qualified and now is accepted as an expert witness in the field of footwear examination and what else?
Tire impression, Your Honor.
And tire impressions. And you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Agent Worley, back in June of 2021, what was your role at SLED again?
I was in the crime scene unit.
As a crime scene investigator?
That's right.
And can you tell us just some of the general procedures of a crime scene investigator who responds to a crime scene?
Sure. We are requested to respond to crime scenes anywhere in the state. When a sheriff's office or police department requests our assistance with a crime scene, we document the scene with photographs and draw sketches, take measurements. We collect evidence, document it, collect it, package it appropriately, maintain chain of custody.
Is there any special kind of protocol that y'all follow?
We do have a protocol manual, yes.
Okay. Do you ever wear any type of gowns or coverings or anything like that out to a crime scene?
We always wear gloves, no matter what. Depends on the scene, I guess, as far as if we're going to wear any booties or anything else.
Okay. Would it be normal protocol to wear booties to an outdoor crime scene?
Not the way we've operated them.
Okay. Why not?
It's not usually, not usually necessary, I guess, as far as watching where you're stepping and not stepping in blood or any tire or footwear impressions or anything. We just don't normally wear booties.
And when you're at a crime scene, are you looking for microscopic evidence?
Well, we don't carry microscopes. Other than swabbing items at a scene, we would collect potential evidence that way by swabbing it.
All right, let's move on to your involvement in this case. Did you have the occasion to respond to Moselle Road on June 7th?
I did.
Okay. What time did you respond out there?
I believe we arrived around 12:07 a.m.
Okay. And are you aware of what time the crime occurred?
I'm not sure about the time it occurred. I know the time I was notified.
Okay. What time was that?
We were notified around 10:33 p.m.
Okay. So it took you roughly 2 hours to get out to the crime scene. Why was that?
We respond from Columbia.
All right. So what did you see when you got out there?
The scene entailed the area where the kennels were located. There was a large workshop with an overhang between the workshop and where the dog kennels were. There was a sort of gravel driveway between the kennels and that overhang. The sheriff's office had brought out a canopy to cover Maggie's body to protect her from the rain.
And what were the weather conditions?
It was raining lightly.
Okay. What is one of the first things you did when you got out there?
We met with David Owen, Special Agent David Owen, and regional agents to kind of get a little more information about what the scene entailed. And we did a little initial walkthrough to see the sheriff's office had marked some potential evidence, so we walked around to see what was what and see if we could find any additional evidence before we started taking photographs.
Do you recall collecting a shotgun from Agent Daniel Green, or excuse me, Officer or Sergeant Daniel Green?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did that occur?
He had maintained custody of a shotgun and needed to transfer it to me, so he brought it over to my truck and we put it in a gun box. We took photographs of it and rendered it safe.
Was that gun loaded or unloaded when you took custody of it?
It was loaded.
And did you unload that weapon?
I did.
And why would you do that?
We always render a firearm safe before we transport it.
Agent Corley, I'm going to show you what's already been entered as State's Exhibit 4, along with the shotgun that was collected. Could you tell us what you have there?
one of the 2 shot shells that were in the shotgun.
And that's a shot shell that you unloaded from this gun?
That's right.
And what gauge is that?
This one is 16 gauge.
And the correct caliber for that gun is a 12 gauge?
That's right.
Since Daniel Green collected that gun, did you take a buccal swab from him?
We did, yes.
And why would you do that?
In case his DNA was on the firearm, we would need to eliminate him or know that was his.
Agent Worley, this is State's Exhibit 249. Does that appear to be the buccal swab you collected from Daniel Green?
Yes, it is.
And how can you tell?
It has my handwriting, my initials. The seal tape has my initials with my handwriting for the date.
This time the State would offer State's Exhibit 249 into evidence.
Submitted without objection.
Agent Worley, if you can take a look at State's Exhibit 17. Do you recognize what is in that picture?
I do.
Is that a true and accurate representation?
It is.
Now, at this time, I'll move State's Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Could you identify what it is before we do that? I mean, no objection, no objection, no objection.
What is it?
It's the shotgun that I took custody of, and the 12 gauge and the 16 gauge shot shells that I removed from the shotgun.
Submitted without objection.
And if you could, for the jury, could you tell us which shells we're looking at here?
The one on the left is the 12 gauge, and the one on the right is 16 gauge.
And those are the shells you unloaded from that gun?
They are.
And you described the crime scene.
I don't think I heard anything that I just said. I heard it was supposed to last 10 days. Like, there's no way. No, this cannot last a couple of months. We just may have to do, like, quick rundowns. I may have to, like, get, like, recaps and not watch this full thing because this is crazy.
If you could, State's Exhibit 22. It's previously been entered. Could you describe that to the jury?
That's the large overhang on the side of the workshop, the doghouse that's just outside that overhang, and the Maggie's body is lying there underneath that canopy. The kennels are in the background.
How did you discover Paul's body or observe Paul's body?
He was, when we arrived, he was still covered with a pink sheet. but we could tell he was lying face down, just outside the feed room.
And when you, how did you process the area around him?
We start with documenting the area with photographs, photographing the evidence that the sheriff's office had already marked, do overall mid-range and close-up of each item of evidence, photograph the victims as they were when we arrived, before the sheets were moved or anything.
This time I'm going to publish tapes Exhibit 24, which is a sealed exhibit.
Yes, he was arrested and charged with murdering Maggie and Paul, and we're at trial right now for that.
How you found Paul's body?
After we documented him with the sheet over him and the coroner removed the sheet, yes, that is what it looked like.
And he appears to be laying outside of a feed room.
That's correct.
Did you process that feed room?
After he was removed from the area, we went in the room to process the room.
And if you look at that picture there, it appears that there's something laying on the back of his shorts there.
Yes, that's right.
And what was that?
I was told it was his cell phone.
State's Exhibit 25. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is the cell phone on the back of his shorts.
This time the state removes State's Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Okay. Submit it.
And this is the cell phone that was laying on top of Paul's body?
That's right.
Now, did y'all process the inside of the feed room?
We did.
Mr. Florien, I'm going to ask you to take a look. Let's take exhibits 26, 27, 28, 30. If you can. 31, 32, 35, 198, 199, 38, 39, 40, 42, 43, 44, and 45, please. Agent Worley, in general, what are those pictures of?
They're all taken inside the feed room. A lot of them are footwear impressions.
And are those true and accurate representations of the feed room as it was the night of the murders on June 7th?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer those exhibits into evidence.
Trying to blow through the silence. I don't know if I should like get up and dance during it just to keep us entertained, but I can't play music, so you guys wouldn't hear it. I could hear it, but.
Exhibit numbers again.
So that takes exhibits 27, 26, 30, 28, 31, 35, 32, 198, 199, 38, 39, 40, 42, 43, 44, and 45.
They are admitted without objection.
Agent Worley, this is State's Exhibit 27. If you could tell the jurors what they're looking at in this picture.
That's a view looking from the door into the feed room.
And what can we see on the floor there?
Marker 1 is the shot shell wad. There's also suspected blood and tissue, possible pieces of skull on the floor.
And then looking back at that window.
There were several bullet defects in the window and the glass.
And State's Exhibit 26.
That's showing the feed room also, but it's showing more of the door, the outside of the door.
And if you notice the top of the door, what can you see up there?
It looks like blood, and there's also hair on top of the door.
State's Exhibit 30.
That's behind the door to the feed room.
Okay. And what's back there?
There were two 12-gauge shot shells on the fired shot shells on the floor behind the door, and also there was hair behind the door.
State's Exhibit 31.
That was after we marked the two fired shot shells as markers 9 and 10, and also showing them the shot shell wad at marker 1 in the same photo.
And State's Exhibit 26.
And that's a close-up of the shot shell wad at marker 1, and there's also a partial footwear impression in blood.
Okay. And do we see some little round pellets there?
Yes, there were pellets on the floor.
.32.
That's a close-up of the shot shells at 9 and 10.
Were those shot shells collected?
Yes, they were.
When those shot shells were collected, what did you do with them?
We photographed them first before we pick them up. We packaged them, write the information on the packaging as what it is, where it came from at marker 9 and 10, date and initial and time it was collected.
And were they submitted to the lab and placed in these big plastic bags?
I transferred them to a crime scene lieutenant.
I'll ask you to take a look at these for me. Do those appear to contain item 1 and items 9 and 10?
Yes.
And also some other items that were collected?
Yes. Wait, open them.
This time I will have Agent Corley open the bag and remove items 1 and items 9 and 10.
Yeah, Buster looks just like his dad.
All right, so item 1 is what?
That is the shot shell wad that was at marker 1.
Okay. And how do you know that is the shot shell wad that you collected?
It's my handwriting on the box, my initials on the seal on the tape.
And then item 9 and item 10?
And these are the two shot shells, fired shot shells at markers 9 and 10. This one is one at marker 9. It's 12 gauge federal, and one at marker 10 was, I believe, Winchester 12 gauge.
That was Alex Murdaugh on the night of the murders. The picture that I just showed you guys. This. No blood. Yeah, a little bit of a pot belly, huh?
Move items 29, the shot shell wad, and item 34, the 12 gauge federal, and item 33, 12 gauge Winchester, into evidence.
Okay.
Without objection.
All right, also in that feed room, we were looking at what appeared to be some bloody footprints. Is that right, Agent Worley?
That's right.
You can see those footprints here in State's Exhibit 27.
You can see them.
About State's Exhibit 35 here.
Yes, there are two right there at marker 1.
So right down in here.
Yes.
Look at that. He's active.
So in your training and experience as a...
We're going to see how quick he changes it. As soon as they quit talking about, like, those details, he'll clear right up. Also, is my chair that squeaky? My husband's is terrible. I thought mine was all right.
A footwear examiner, did you have occasion to examine those footprints?
I did.
And did you have some shoes to compare those footprints to?
Yes, I took custody of the shoes that Paul was wearing when I attended his autopsy. I was able to compare those to the footwear impressions in the feed room.
And now how do you do that?
We make test impressions of the shoes after they've been photographed with ink on the bottom of the shoe. I have someone similar who wears the same size, usually wears the shoe and steps on a piece of cardstock paper. We make as many test impressions as we need to make sure I've gotten all the area of the bottom of the shoe. Then I reprint those test impressions on transparencies. It makes it easier to overlay those on top of the photographs of the unknown impressions at the crime scene. And I compare the unknown impressions from the crime scene to the overlays that I place of Paul's shoes.
So you make a transparent overlay and you place it on pictures to determine if they correspond.
That's right.
State's Exhibit 148.
Look, clean right up. Oh, clean
What
right
is
up.
that?
I mean, Alex.
That is a printed version of the test impressions that we created of Paul's shoes.
Here it goes
And
again.
State's Exhibit 199.
That one is the right shoe. The first one was the left shoe.
And there are, I guess, 2 impressions of each shoe there?
That's right.
All right, so using the impressions you made in the photographs, did you make any determinations?
I determined they were corresponding consistent with the outsole design of Paul's shoes.
And we'll look a little closer here at State's Exhibit 38. I'm sorry, there appears to be some kind of shadow here on the Elmo. State's 138, is that a picture that you used from the crime scene to compare to Paul's shoes?
It is.
And what did you determine regarding that?
That one was also consistent with the outsole design of Paul's shoes.
I think it was the chair in the courthouse because mine's not squeaky. I thought you were saying it was mine, though. I was like, really? It had to be the courtroom.
State's Exhibit 39.
Both of those were the same outsole design as Paul's shoes.
Look at it.
And we'll go back to State's Exhibit 40. And if you're standing in the feed room, what position are those shoes facing?
Those are facing the window.
Facing the window.
Right.
Did you also notice the door of that feed room?
I did.
And what about the door?
There was a lot of, I guess, blood, brain matter on the outside of the door, not so much on the inside, interior side of the door. There's a little bit at the very top, and hair on top of the door, but not on the rest of the back of the door.
So State's Exhibit 42 here. What can we see?
That's a picture of the exterior side of the door. You can see the blood toward the top of the door.
So that would be like the front of the door.
Right.
And State's Exhibit 43.
And that's also the front of the door.
Okay. And we can see some blood spatter up here in the corner.
Yes.
Would that be right?
That's right.
And then it appears to be hair as well?
Yes,
Is that
that's right.
And we mentioned the defects in the window. State's Exhibit 44 here.
Yes.
What can we see there? Can you see a hole in that window?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 45.
Yes, you can see one of the defects.
Okay. And do you recall how many defects were in the window?
6, I believe.
Later, did you have an occasion to go back out to the scene and re-examine that window?
I did.
At that time, can you tell us what you did when you examined the window?
We went to further document, take more measurements of the area. We scaled the defects and took several more measurements of where those defects were in the window.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 114 and 115. Do you recognize those images?
I do.
What is that?
These are diagrams of the window that I created. One shows the interior side of the window and one shows the exterior side. Shows where the defects are located in the window and all the measurements that we took for each defect.
Your Honor, this time I move States 114 and 115 into evidence.
Okay. So Paul is looking fine again. Y'all pay attention. I mean, not Paul, to Alec. Pay attention to Alec. I mean, he lowers his head, turns red, shakes, makes a face like he's crying. And then within seconds, he's like chewing on the tip of his glasses. It's like any time where he thinks he should get sad, he pretends to get sad. But he comes out of it way too quick, in my opinion. Now, I'm no body language expert, but I aspire to be one.
You're admitted without objection.
Commissioner published. We're looking here at States 114. Do I have that in the correct orientation, Agent Worley?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And can you kind of explain to the jurors the defects we're looking at here?
Sure. There's defects A through, I believe, G. starting from top to bottom.
So, like where it says defect A, defect B, what is that?
Those were the locations of where the bullet defects were in the glass.
So those are holes in the glass.
Right. Yes.
And that is from the inside of the feed ring.
That's right.
And State's Exhibit 115 here. What is that?
That is the exterior side of the window.
So those are the same defects, but from looking from the exterior, like from the outside of the ring.
Right.
And what was kind of the purpose of that?
In the event reconstruction would ever be done of the scene, it's necessary to have specific measurements to be able to place those bullet defects, those holes, back in the window where they were based on measurements.
What else did you recall doing concerning the feed ring?
We collected several of the shot shell pellets. We also swabbed the exterior doorknob of the room just for potential touch DNA.
Did you collect those pellets from the feed ring floor?
Yes, we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch at this time and resume at 2:20. Have a good lunch. Please do not discuss the case.
Praise God. Lord, you guys.
Interview to go on without a pretty tight ship. Welcome. Kind of a little too early.
Critical. Change of
Jury is
great lawyers on both sides, and that would be quite a fight.
We have another question, Michael Bryant. This one is for you. Taryn_.
Read some of the comments. Oh wait, never mind. It's live.
This time I'll offer State's Exhibit 20, the pellets from the feed ring floor, and State's Exhibit 18, the swabs from the door of the feed room into evidence.
Says defense.
Sorry, no objection.
Okay, so it's 2:50 there. Last time they went all the way to 5:30. So we may still have like 2.5 hours of this. I can't take it. Lord, this is so, you guys. Like, I want to be dedicated to this, but like, I just don't know. Like, I'm like looking at like Law and Crime and Network, whatever this is, Law and Crime Network. They have 30,000 people watching right now. But I'm like, how? How has 29,500 people not left out of pure boredom? And I'm all into this case. I want to see justice served. You know what I'm saying? But holy macaroo.
All right, Agent Worley, let's move on to Magna. Did you have a chance to observe her body?
I did.
And where was it located?
She was just past the workshop overhang near the doghouse.
And when you first got out there, could you see her body, or was it covered?
It was covered with a pink sheet.
I'm going to show you States 52, States Exhibit 50, States 48, and States 47. You could take a look at those and tell us what, in general, they just depict.
These were photos of Maggie, the way she appeared when we arrived on scene, still covered with pink sheet.
And are those true and accurate depictions of the crime scene where Maggie Murdaugh was found when you were out there?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer States Exhibits 52, 50, 48, and 47 as evidence.
Your Honor, we don't have any objections to these, but I think we need to go through this process, at least on 2 of them, to have them submitted under seal and a placeholder put in effect. Am I wrong about that?
exhibits 52 through 48 and 47 into evidence.
Say the defense.
No objection.
Get it.
I don't have an objection to either the number, whatever that is.
Your Honor, will seal states exhibit 50 due to its graphic nature, and prepare that placeholder.
Admit it.
Agent Whirley, this is states exhibit 47. You can kind of describe that to the jury.
It's a photo showing Maggie's body lying on the ground with the sheriff's office canopy over her, looking toward the overhang for the workshop, and you can see the kennels off to the right.
And these pictures are kind of hard to see on the screen. Is Paul's body also in that shot?
You can sort of see the pink sheet that's over him, yes.
Like over in front of the feed room door?
Right.
And then Maggie's is in front of this ATV?
Yes, that's right.
And states exhibit 48?
That's looking from a different angle. Maggie, the doghouse in the background, the workshop overhang, and the ATVs to the right.
And then states exhibit 52?
That was after Maggie's body was removed from the area.
This is states 50 submitted under seal.
A different angle of Maggie's body, I believe still covered by the pink sheet.
Maggie's body, where was she actually, what wounds did you observe?
She was lying face down, her both arms bent at the elbow, her right arm was bent toward her face, her left arm was bent underneath her body, her legs were straight out behind her.
This time I'll publish State Defendants Exhibit 2, which is under seal. Is that how her body appeared to be on the scene?
Yes, that is.
Now, when the body was moved, did you notice anything?
We located another cartridge case on the ground, approximately where her right knee had been.
So she was laying on top of a shell case?
That's right.
All right. And did you collect that item?
Yes, we marked it as marker 7, photographed it, and collected it.
And what, do you recall what kind of round that was?
It was a 300 blackout.
We're going to ask you to take a look at this baggie, and if you can, remove item 7.
No objection, Your Honor.
Agent Forley, State's Exhibit 68, item 7, the 300 blackout recovered under the knee of Maggie Murdaugh. How do you know that is that?
It's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it. My initials and the date on the seal tape.
And I'm going to show, this time I'll move State's Exhibit 68 into evidence.
Submitted without objection.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 61. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes.
Is that what is that a picture of?
It is item 7, cartridge case, located at marker 7 before we collected it.
Okay. Is that a true and accurate depiction of that casing at the crime scene?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time the State would move State's Exhibit 61 into evidence.
Is that what you just showed me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No objection.
Submitted.
And this is the shell casing here, shell case?
Yes, it is.
And this is a picture of it, is located at the crime scene, correct?
That's right.
Now, did you collect some other shell cases while you were out there?
Yes, we did.
And if we're looking in some of these pictures, you see the little yellow placards there. I don't know if we can see them that well on the screen here. What do each of those placards indicate?
Those are the evidence markers that the sheriff's office placed on cartridge cases that were on scene. Markers 3, 4, and 5 were all the same 300 blackout cartridge cases.
So, how many blackout cases did we recover from the scene?
I believe it was 5.
Maybe that's what he's doing, pretending to be like ill or like sick, trying to get the jury's attention. It's definitely.
And did you collect the cases that were at the scene?
Yes, I did.
And that would be items 2 through 6?
2 through 7, yes.
2 through 7. Oh, we already have items 7 up there. So do you have items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 there?
Yes, Casey, exactly. That's what I think as well.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And what are items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
They're all cartridge cases, head stamped SNB 300 AAC BLK, collected from markers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And in this case, does the item number correspond with the case with where the marker was?
It does, yes.
And can you take a look at these pictures? That's going to be State's Exhibit 60, 62, 59, 58, 57, 56, 55, and 54, and also 53.
2021. The murders happened June 2021. I think that's when it was.
And can you tell us in general what we see in those pictures?
So these photos show each of those markers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and before we collected the evidence. And also marker 13.
And are those true and accurate depictions of where 300 blackout shell cases were on the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time I would offer State's Exhibits 62, 60, 59, 58, 57, 56, 55, 54, and 53 into evidence.
Show them to the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
They're admitted without objection.
Cases that were collected, did you collect them and put them in these little envelopes?
Yes, I did.
No objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
Agent Worley, I'm going to get you to take a look at these cases one more time. This being now marked as State's Exhibit 63. If you could tell the jury what that is.
This is a cartridge case 300 blackout from marker 2.
And how do you know this is the 300 blackout cartridge case that you collected from marker 2?
That's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
What about for State's 64?
The 300 blackout cartridge case that I collected from marker 3. It's my handwriting on the envelope, date, time, and initials when I collected it, and my initials on the seal.
State's Exhibit 65.
Cartridge case collected from marker 4, 300 blackout. Has my handwriting with the date, time, and initials when I collected it, and the initials, my initials on the seal.
66.
It's the 300 blackout cartridge case from marker 5. It's my handwriting, my date, time, and initials, and my initials on the seal.
And then State's 67.
The 300 blackout cartridge case from marker 6 is my handwriting on the envelope with the date, time, and initials when I collected it, my initials on the seal.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move States 63 through 67 into evidence.
They're admitted.
And Agent Worley, what did you do with these cases once they were collected on the scene?
I sealed them in those coin envelopes that are in there with them. I transported them to the lab at SLED.
And when you got them to the lab at SLED, what did you do?
I transferred most of the evidence from the scene to one of the crime scene lieutenants, Lieutenant Todd Shank.
And does he take those items and put them in some sort of secure location, or what happens to them?
He would have logged them into our database and transferred them wherever they were going in the lab for analysis.
Right, I'm going to turn your attention now to what's previously been admitted. It's State's Exhibit 49, which I believe is admitted under seal. Now, if we take a look at this picture, you can see those yellow placards. Placard 2, I believe, would correspond with item 2, which has been marked as State 63.
Yes, that's right.
And State's Exhibit 53 here, what are we looking at here?
That's that cartridge case at marker 2 before we collected it.
And State's Exhibit 54?
That's a close-up of the same cartridge case at marker 2.
All right, then we'll move to...
Hey, you guys, some of the interrogation videos come out, several parts of it. It looks like it's coming out right now. Do you guys want to close this out? I'll start doing recap videos. I can't take this. This is like, ugh. Thank God I'm not in the courtroom. I'd be falling asleep. I would be pulling Harpootling, whatever his name is. We're going to close this out, and we're going to come back, and we're going to watch the interview. They're interviewing him. These are coming out right now, so I can't take this. We're going to go watch that, okay? Let's close this video out. Give me a thumbs up. We're going to start doing recaps. So every night around 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time, maybe 8 o'clock Central Time, as quick as I can get them out, I'll put out a recap video that'll be about 10 or 15 minutes long, okay? So we're going to start doing that. I just can't take it. If it gets more interesting and it picks up, maybe we'll go back to covering it. But right now, I'm like, my brain is like, so give me like 10 minutes to get like a thumbnail made and get it all set up. And we'll be right back here. Give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. Bye, everyone.